Am I the jerk for freaking out on my girlfriend after she lied to me about stealing a protein bar from the store? Because after I called her out on it, she literally started laughing at me, trying to make light of the situation despite the fact that I was very serious. And now I'm honestly starting to question everything, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so my partner and I of about a year went to the store this morning to get our weekly groceries. She then opened up a protein bar in the middle of the store, which I always find weird when people open stuff instead of just waiting, but it's whatever. If she wants that, then sure. I then kind of joke around and I say, "You're weird for that, baby. Just wait till we're home." And she says, "Well, it's not like I'm gonna pay for it." And so, long story short, we get to the register of the store and we're checking out. They're scanning the items and I remember she opened the protein bar as I'm talking to the clerks. I then turn to her and I say, "Baby, did you put the wrapper in there?" And she tells me, "Yeah, it's in there." Now, as she's telling me this, I can visually see the wrapper in her hand by her waist. And I'm thinking, what in the world is going on? Did she really just lie to me? And honestly, I am super confused right now. We walk out of the store and I ask her, "What is in your hand?" And she finally showed me the protein bar wrapper that she didn't pay for. I then go, "Did you really just steal that?" And she was just trying to laugh it off and giggle about it by being like, "Oh no, didn't mean to do that." But I instantly told her that crap is not cool and it reflects poorly on her character. I then didn't say much on the drive home or when we got home. She then asked if I was upset, to which I said, "Yes, I am upset. We don't do that type of stuff regardless of if it's like a $4 protein bar or not. It's not right." She then just walks out the door to drive back to the store to pay. Now, I really don't care she's playing now because it feels like she's only doing it because I called her out on it. She's saying, "Oh, you think I don't already feel bad?" And I'm telling her, "No, I don't think you feel bad at all. I think you only feel bad because I'm calling you out on it." She's now saying that she doesn't know if she'll be home for the rest of the day, as well as a list of all these other reasons because she feels so bad. And me being upset with her is making it worse. So I don't know, am I the jerk here for freaking out over a tiny $4 protein bar and about the fact that she lied to me? This wasn't even a situation where she was stealing because she hates corporations or grocery stores. It's nothing like that at all, and it honestly is just so confusing. What should I do? Okay, bro, this is not someone you want as a partner. I'm sorry. This is some crazy behavior for so many reasons. For starters, anybody who's opening food inside of a grocery store absolutely is doing it in hopes that they can get away with stealing from that store. And with cameras literally everywhere, I don't know about you, but I don't want to go to jail because that's what's going to happen if she gets caught, dude. That's shoplifting. You can't do that. So for her to sit there and try and laugh this off when you called her out on it, and for her to lie to you when you asked her, "Hey, did you put the wrapper on the conveyor belt?" That is two huge red flags in my opinion that I would never ignore because I hate people who steal. I can't stand it. Don't steal from me or other people and we will probably get along just fine. And yeah, it's only $4 from a grocery store and I'm sure they're going to be fine. But it really is the principle of the matter. This absolutely reflects poorly on her character and who she is as a person. So for her to think this is a joke and not a big deal, and then to try and turn it against you and be like, "Wow, you're so mad at me. I can't possibly come home. I just feel so bad." That is all such garbage, dude. She's so full of it, it's not even funny. So no, you're not overreacting, and yes, this is a big deal. Because in my opinion, this is absolutely reflective of who she really is on the inside, and that is not something I would ever ignore. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for refusing to help my friend move after she ghosted me in the middle of my own personal emergency? Because once I found out she forgot to feed my cat for 3 days, I decided that I'm just not gonna help her out anymore because I seriously can't take it anymore. Here's how it all started. So I've been friends with someone who I will call Samantha for about 5 years. We've always been close, or at least I thought we were. She's usually fun, funny, and supportive, but last week completely changed how I see her. I had a family emergency and I had to leave town unexpectedly. I texted Samantha asking for a small favor, just to feed my cat and water my plants while I was gone. She agreed and said it was no problem, and I trusted her. Well, fast forward 3 days and I call her to check in and she hasn't done anything. She claims she forgot and that she's been too busy. My plants are wilted and my cat is stressed and really hungry. And my God, I was furious, but I didn't explode because emergencies happen. 2 days later, she texts me asking if I can help her move on Saturday. Now, I'm exhausted from my own situation, and honestly, I'm still a bit upset about how she dropped the ball when I needed her. I then just told her that I couldn't make it this weekend. Well, she started texting me nonstop, saying that I was selfish and being a bad friend, and that friends help each other no matter what. She even said that I should just put it aside because her move is stressful and I've always been good at helping. Now, at this point, I blocked her text for a few hours just to cool down, and now she's posting passive-aggressive stuff on social media about friends who only care about themselves. And mutual friends are saying that I should have helped because it's just one day and that I'm overreacting. I feel like if she couldn't help me during an actual emergency, I shouldn't feel guilty for saying no to moving boxes for her. I'm tired of being treated like I exist only to serve her convenience. So am I the jerk for refusing to help her out? Because honestly, after she ghosted me, this honestly has left a bad taste in my mouth, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Okay, I want to say first and foremost that I've met people like this before, and I've even been friends with people like this before, and they are the worst. They literally are the most selfish people on planet Earth. It's mostly been on like the family side of things where they're like, oh, we're family, you have to help me out. But the second I ask them to come to bat for me, they're nowhere to be found. They don't show up for any kind of events in my life. They don't show up for anything going wrong. They're only there when they need something, and that is so annoying because they will butter you up like crazy. They'll say whatever they need to make sure you show up for them, despite the fact that they never showed up for you. And holy crap, this lady didn't feed your cat for 3 days. I would be so pissed off if someone did that to my pet. Like seriously, there is no good excuse for that. You do not put my pet at risk just because you forgot. And no, I don't believe that Samantha actually had an emergency. That's a load of garbage. So no, you're not the jerk. I personally would not help this friend out at all. And if her move really depends on whether or not you're there, then she's got bigger problems than anyone probably realizes. Because your attendance for this is absolutely not a make or break moment. And instead, she's being a selfish jerk once again trying to get something out of you instead of actually being a good friend and showing up for you when it counts. Am I overreacting for getting pissed off at my boyfriend after he went behind my back and soundproofed my home office with dirty trash? Because right now I'm pissed and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what's happening. Okay, so I've been complaining about the noise from the street lately because I work from home and I do a lot of Zoom calls. My boyfriend is currently between jobs and has been super into these life hack videos on Facebook and TikTok, and he always says that I waste money on professional stuff when he could do it for free. Anyways, I went to my parents for the weekends to help my mom with surgery prep, and I came back today just to try and surprise him. Well, when I walked into my office, the smell hit me first. It smells like old milk and stale cardboard. I turned on the light and I swear to you, I almost fainted. He has glued, like literally super glued, hundreds of egg cartons to my walls. And this is from the floor all the way to the ceiling. And these are not clean craft store ones. These are used ones. Like 50% of them have dried yolk stains and weird crust on them. He then comes running in beaming, looking so proud, asking if I noticed how dead the sound is. He then told me he spent the last 3 days dumpster diving behind the local bakery and asking neighbors for their trash just to save us $500 on acoustic panels. But when he said this and I saw everything around me, I started crying. Like I literally couldn't help it. I asked him how I'm supposed to have clients see this background on video. He then got quiet and said I was being ungrateful because he spent hours applying the glue. I then tried to peel one off, but it took a chunk of the drywall with it. So now the wall is just completely ruined too. My boyfriend is now currently locked in the bedroom saying that I emasculated him by calling it trash and that I care more about aesthetics than his effort to help me. So am I crazy here? Like, am I overreacting for thinking that this is actually insane behavior? Or should I have just said thank you? I honestly don't even know how to fix this without burning the entire house down because this really pisses me off and I just don't know what to do. Oh my gosh, your boyfriend completely screwed up. Because seriously, why would he use super glue? There's so many things he could have done that would have been better for the wall than super glue. Like, what's going on right now? The original poster also stated that this is going to come out of their deposit because they're the only ones signed on the lease. So the boyfriend's not going to pay for any of this. Like, this is going to come out of the original poster's pocket. But my God, the fact that he did this without asking first or being like, hey, I'm going to do this for you is just crazy in my opinion. And I personally can't stand when people do that, especially when they do like a crappy job. If I wanted my room soundproofed, I would have asked you about it and we could have like worked together on it. But instead you came in with like literal trash and stuck it to the wall. And it's like, dude, no one's gonna want that. That is so unbelievably disgusting. Especially with him using old egg cartons on the wall. Sure, it might like do some kind of soundproofing, but also it's gonna smell like garbage. So yeah, you are not overreacting. This guy's an idiot for doing this. Because this didn't save you $500 on acoustic panels. If anything, it's probably gonna cost more just to try and repair it. Am I the jerk for kicking my mentally ill brother out of my house when he started treating my wife like actual garbage? Because I honestly kind of knew this was going to happen, but it still is really devastating to see it take place. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. For a bit of context, I'm married and I own a home with my wife in Los Angeles. My younger brother is about 2 years younger than me, and he has never lived on his own. He lived with my dad until he turned about 24 years old, and then he moved into his girlfriend's parents' house until he was 28 years old. But once they broke up, my my dad gifted him a condo that was above his business. Now, my younger brother got a ton of free passes with my dad. He trashed the condo, didn't take care of anything, and my dad finally decided to retire and sell it because he just simply couldn't take it anymore. My brother's also on his third car, all of which bought by our grandfather. Also, about 4 months ago was when he got kicked out. He came to our door begging, and I knew exactly how it was going to go. I told him he had 1 month to get his life together, and honestly, I just kept caving. My wife is an actress, and she only books about once every 6 months. She does auditions and classes daily for an hour or two, but mostly she just does housewife stuff. So I told him right off the bat she was not doing any of that for him. I don't care if he's working 5 jobs. He is doing his own laundry, he's doing his own cleaning, and he's doing his own cooking. Now, of course, he left messes. He threw his laundry on the floor, made the argument that he is working full-time and she's not, and I was like, okay, this is her home. Then, when I told him that he would have to pay bills 2 months in, he got mad and said, oh, well, your wife doesn't pay bills. But it's like, dude, she's my wife. She takes care of our home. Anytime I told him to stop making extra work for her, he would say, oh, she's a housewife. She's doing it for you, so I don't understand why she can't do the same for me. He even asked why I get to have my laundry done and my meals cooked for me, but he can't and works as much as I do. It honestly drove me crazy. He also would make noises while my wife was in auditions, which was really frustrating for her. Not even like accidental, like screaming watching a sports game 5 seconds after we told him that she was going on Zoom. And this was one of my breaking points. She has dedicated her whole life to this, ever since she was like 9 years old. When I started making good money, the first thing I was excited about was that she could focus on her dreams. She finally got a good agent. The auditions that she was getting were huge, and she was on cloud 9. But as soon as he started doing this, I noticed that she was getting stressed. And one of the main issues is he works nights. He was there all day while I was at work, and if she asked him to be quiet, he simply didn't care. He said he didn't consider it a career, and he didn't think that she'd make it, so he didn't feel the need to care about it. As if her making it or not changed anything about it being her home and her dreams. If I was home and I told him to shut up, he would. However, during the day, he simply didn't listen to her, and instead made her cry. And that was the day that I told him to get out. He's had enough free passes, and it's time to grow up. My other brothers got mad and said that I'm heartless because he's struggling mentally, but the guy's been struggling mentally since he was like 16 years old, and he's never attempted any kind of therapy, medication, or anything. He just cries and relies on everybody else to do everything. So seriously, am I the jerk in this scenario for kicking my brother out after the way he treated my wife? Because right now I'm still incredibly pissed off. Okay, in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk for kicking him out, but I am convinced you just did not think this through and you are completely foolish for letting him move in the first place. You knew this was gonna happen. You know there's a pattern with this guy, and yet you still allowed him to move in. And so for 2 months, you had to deal with this guy while he's a complete nightmare for your wife. That is so unfair for her. She doesn't need to cry over this guy. She has no reason to be stressed out about this idiot. If you knew this was gonna be the case, then he should not have moved in. You should have said straight up, I'm sorry, but you can't come here. Because you put your wife through stress that she didn't need to deal with, and that is absolutely not fair, and that definitely falls on you. Am I the jerk for telling my sister-in-law that she needs to take a shower because she really smells bad? And even though she tried to excuse it by saying she has a health condition, I told her it doesn't matter. Her hygiene is nasty and she really smells incredibly foul. And as you can probably imagine, this really offended her when I said this. And now I'm kind of wondering if I'm the jerk or not. Here's what happened. Okay, so my sister-in-law has a health condition that causes her to sweat more than average. She could be doing nothing physically, but still be sweating bullets. And it can even be cold out and she will still break out into a sweat. This is something that I've always known about her since we started talking back in high school, and although we weren't super close back then, it was something that I can live with. Well, flash forward to modern day, and I'm now with her brother, and oftentimes she likes to stop by very often since we live very close together, and this I absolutely don't mind since she's overall a sweet person and likes to bring free food. The only issue is that she smells, and I'm talking like absolutely foul. I know she wasn't the most hygienic person sometimes out of forgetfulness, but after she moved out of her parents' house, nobody was there to remind her to shower, put on deodorant, and brush her teeth. And you can clearly tell she doesn't do any of that nearly as much as she should. Now, anytime she comes over, her smell really bothers me. After she leaves, I have to literally open all the windows in the apartment and spray the entire place down. I have to fight myself from gagging whenever she goes to hug me. And sometimes I can barely be around her for dinners without her body odor grossing me out too much to even focus on the food. And unfortunately, this was the exact case while we were all out at dinner together, where her smell at some point was so bad that I had to go to the bathroom to throw up. And at that point, I completely had had enough of her stench. After dinner, I pulled her aside and I tried my best to gently explain to her that she really needs to shower and put on deodorant since she smells awful. Well, her reaction was to remind me that she can't help it due to her health condition, since she would just sweat through all of her deodorant not even halfway through the day. But that's when I just flat out told her that I don't care about her health condition, and that if anything, because of it, she should be even more hygienic, even going as far as to offering to even buy her deodorant and soap if it means that she just uses it. When I said this, she ended up breaking down crying about how she can't help her condition, and she doesn't understand why I'm being so mean to her. Now, did I point this all out nicely? Well, no, absolutely not. But it's starting to drive me insane that every time I'm around her, she smells like a barnyard. So now I really need to know if I'm the jerk in this situation, because honestly, I don't know what else to do. Okay, in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk. It kind of sounds like your sister-in-law needs some really tough love in this situation, because clearly no one else is telling her, hey, you smell like garbage. And the fact that she's trying to dismiss this by saying, you don't understand, because of my health condition, I don't wear any deodorants. But it's like, bro, you have it backwards. If you're sweating all the time and this causes you to smell like crap, then you should be actively putting on deodorant as much as possible. You shouldn't just sit there and be like, well, I'm just gonna sweat through it, so I'll put nothing on. Like, dude, that is so gross. No wonder the original poster's throwing up in the bathroom during dinner. So no, I don't think you're the jerk at all. This was clearly some tough love that she absolutely needed to hear, and the fact that it came from someone that really does care about her, I think will be better off in the long run than someone who doesn't care and just wants to offend her. My parents are literally trying to force me into having a medical career of some kind as a doctor. But despite the fact that I've told them I don't want this to be my career, they have refused to listen and have even signed me up for some coaches to get me ready for medical school. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's how it all started. For the longest time, my parents have wanted me to become a doctor. It's been drilled into my head for as long as I can remember, and for a bit, it just kind of made sense. My mom was a nurse, my dad was a doctor, and all of my older friends were becoming doctors as well. So I should just become a doctor too. But then a little while back, something just kind of clicked. Do I really want to be a doctor? Then I started thinking and researching, and I realized how many careers I could pursue that I hadn't even considered. I even started talking with my parents about these careers, and it's not like they're not realistic. And when I would do that, they would just shut me down immediately, saying stuff like, well, my parents chose my career, so I have the right to choose yours. You don't pay any school fees. While also making sure to warn me not to take the lazy man's path. Well, fast forward to the present day, and I have a year left of high school, and they're enrolling me in something called a graduate medical school admissions test, and also signing me up for coaches and tutors, all without my knowledge. And I'm seriously being expected to follow through with this, despite making it clear for a while that I've been considering fields other than medicine. We've had a couple of fights about this, and technically they can't force me to pursue medicine, but they have said they will take away privileges if I don't. And the thing that really sucks the most is that I don't even know what I want to do after school, even if I dislike medicine. But I do know I don't want to be forced into something I don't want to do. Okay, I think your parents are being super entitled and very toxic. This is so unfortunate, because I guarantee you, if they try to force you into a career that you don't want to do, chances are you're either going to burn out of school or you're probably going to quit and do something else. And I mean, sure, there's probably a situation here where it's like, yeah, I figured it out and I actually stuck it out and I kind of like it now. But from the sounds of it, you're not even sure if you want to be a doctor or not. So for them to be forcing that decision on you at such an early age is just really intrusive in my opinion. And it's not entirely fair for you. So yeah, I'm so sorry you're dealing with this, but hopefully things get better and you're able to go into something that you actually want to do. Because it's better to know right now that you don't want to be a doctor instead of looking up like 10 years later and you are a doctor and realize that you would rather be in any other career. I could imagine that would be way worse, and I just would hate for that to happen to you. Am I overreacting for refusing to give up our bed just so my parents and in-laws can sleep in it? Because after I said no, they claimed that they're offended and that apparently this is something I should have done from the very beginning. And honestly, I'm super pissed off and I don't know what to do. Here's a bit of context to explain how it started. Okay, so my husband and I have bought the house of my in-laws, and they did this because they wanted to move and live closer to my sister-in-law and her baby. We've changed out all the furniture, of course, and decided to turn the former children's rooms into offices. We also do not have a a guest room and only have a pull-out sleeping couch. And both the in-laws and my parents slept on that couch before in our old flat. However, now when my in-laws come to visit, they refuse to sleep on the couch. They asked us to give up our bed for them instead. I was really offended by that, and so was my husband. I mean, it's our bed, our private space, and our home now, no longer theirs. And when they said this, it just appeared really entitled to me, especially since they come to visit for a house party when we have other guests involved. We announced to everyone that we didn't have space, and originally we didn't even want to offer them the couch because I have a friend I wanted to invite who can't afford a hotel room, so I promised them the couch already. My husband offered to move the friend to an air mattress so his parents could have the couch, but they demanded our bed. Now, I was quite passive-aggressive in my response and refused to give up the bed. I don't even want them to come at all with that attitude, except I know how bad it would look. So seriously, am I overreacting here? My parents claim giving your bed to your elder guest is a matter of respect and gratefulness, and they themselves were offended in the past when we didn't offer it. Like we should just always do it, period, and not just in this situation. They apparently prefer to go to a hotel over sleeping on the couch after trying it once, except this is the first time I heard they felt that way. We got that couch specifically for guests, and yet it's apparently not accommodating enough. All of our friends are fine with it, but the parents have higher standards. And by the way, I have no problem if they want to stay in a hotel instead, but demanding our bed just rubs me the wrong way. It felt like they were still seeing it as their house and not ours, and not respecting our decision to not have a guest room. What should I do? Okay, the original poster has it 100% correct. This is weird. I don't care who you are not sleeping in my bed. Like, that's where I sleep, not where you sleep. So for them to be like, well, we always kind of expected you to give up your bed for us, and we're really offended that you're not doing it this time. Like, that's really weird and kind of out of left field. I don't know if there's some kind of like cultural difference going on here, but at least from where I come from, this is not a normal request. If anything, this is them just being entitled and being like, oh, we're not sleeping on that couch bed. Instead, we're gonna make you do it and we'll take your bed. And it's like, no, I don't think so. I'm not doing that. Go get a hotel if that really bothers you that much. So no, you're not overreacting by being pissed off about this, because I would also be pretty upset as well, because their request is weird and you should not be expected to adhere to it. An entitled Karen steals my breakfast on a cruise line, demanding that I give my breakfast over to her. So I decide to maliciously comply by allowing her to eat it, despite the fact that I had packed that food full of hot sauce beforehand. And I've honestly never been happier to unintentionally give out revenge to anybody in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so I was on a cruise, and it was the first morning of a 2-week trip to New Caledonia and back. Also, it was my first solo vacation. Now, I'm a chunky guy, and I do love a good buffet, but especially a breakfast buffet. It's the pinnacle of human civilization, and I think it's the greatest achievement of humanity. Anyways, this morning I attacked the buffet with everything that I have. And one small note, as it will be important later on, is that I'm vegetarian, and I have been for about 30 years. And no, I'm not pushy or judgmental about it, and nearly all my close friends eat meat, but it's just not my thing. So I got myself 2 plates loaded with food. I also noticed that the Mexican food station of the buffet had a wide variety of hot sauces. So as a man who likes his food a bit spicy, I thought I'd try just a little bit of everything. I found a table, I put my plates down, and then I ran off to get some coffee, some water, and some orange juice. And as you can probably tell, I wanted my first cruise breakfast to be as big and as epic as possible. Anyways, I come back 3 minutes later, and sitting at my table about to dig into my plate of food is the entitled Karen of this story. I look at her and I say, "Excuse me, ma'am, but that's my food. I literally just went to get coffee." She looks at me and says, "Could you let me have it? You're young and you can stand in line. I'm old and I can't get around well like I used to. I would appreciate it if you would let me eat your food." Now, this was my first day on a vacation, and I didn't want to mess it up by starting a fight with an old lady over free food. So you know what? I just let her have it. Also, I'm a bit of a germaphobe, and a person that I don't know had a knife and fork in my food, so I wasn't going to eat it anyways. I looked at her and I said, "Okay, but I must warn you, I used a lot of hot sauces on that, so the food may be a little bit spicy." She looks at me and says, "That's okay. I've been around the world. I can handle spicy foods." And with that, I went back around hitting up all the different stations of the buffet, and this time filling up a single plate. As I'm in line for an omelet, the same entitled Karen comes up and starts ranting. She says to me, "Are you trying to unalive me? There were so many hot sauces in there. Your meal wasn't fit for human consumption. And why didn't you get any bacon? What kind of person doesn't have bacon for breakfast?" She then kept complaining to literally anybody who would listen to her about how I was trying to take her out with the hot sauces, and how my food food, which I picked for myself by the way, was completely inedible for her. So I just grabbed my omelet and I found a new table. I felt bad all my other food was wasted, but thankfully this was a big ship and I didn't have to deal with this entitled Karen ever again. Okay, this story's hilarious to me because you literally got revenge on this lady without even meaning to. For starters, who in their right mind would walk up to someone's plate and be like, I'm gonna eat all of this. This is my food now. I'm old. You can get more food. Like seriously, what is wrong with her? Like at this point, she deserves to eat all those hot sauces. Did she really think it would be a good idea to walk in there and be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna take the first person's food that I can see? Like, I don't know about you, but that's the last thing on my mind when I go to a buffet. I don't want someone else's plate. I want my plate. Like, was she literally sitting around waiting for someone to put down their food and be like, okay, now's my time to strike? Like, what is wrong with her? Why not just get in line and get your own thing? Or even ask like a staff member to be like, hey, I'm old and I can't walk. Can you please make me a plate? I would really appreciate it. Because that would have made so much more sense than stealing from somebody else who you literally just met. Like, why take his food when you can quite literally get your own? It really just doesn't make any sense to me, and I think she got exactly what she deserved. So honestly, I'm kind of glad in your taste of food, because the fact that you put all these hot sauces on this without this Karen knowing, in my opinion, is absolutely hilarious, and overall is 100% deserved. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amIthejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for telling my sister to stop expecting me to play baby daddy for her child? Because right now, I feel like she's asking way too much of me, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my twin sister, who we will call Mary, has a 1-year-old son that we will call Lucas. Now, for a bit of backstory, she had a horrible pregnancy right from the first trimester and had to quit her job since she was spending too much time out of the office. Her ex-boyfriend turned out to be a massive piece of garbage who claimed that Mary had cheated on him and pinned the baby on him. And when my family insisted on taking a paternity test as soon as the baby was born, he agreed but went out for some milk before the due date. After Lucas was born, finances became too tricky with a newborn and with Mary's postpartum complications. She then asked if I could let her stay with me temporarily so she doesn't have to pay rent, and I disagreed. I have an extra room in my house, which I inherited from my grandma, so I don't have to worry about rent either. Well, long story short, it's been tough living with a baby whose mother needs so much more help than one person can provide, and our parents live too far away to be of any help. Anyways, I didn't mind waking up half the time to give Lucas his bottle or staying with him when she needed some time to herself. I also paid for everything baby related, things like the hospital bills for the both of them, the food, clothing, diapers, I mean, you name it, I bought it. But now that Mary and my nephew are stable enough that she has now resumed working, she started pushing for more. She expected me to keep paying for everything, but I told her it's harder now that I'm not putting in as many hours and I get paid hourly. But even still, she buys nothing and I end up paying anyways. She also thinks it doesn't make sense to pay for daycare when I'm home most of the day, but I ended up paying for it myself when she wouldn't. So on Monday, she asked me to take Lucas to his hospital appointment, and I just said no. I told her to take the day off for that because my job hasn't been doing well lately as I've been spending too much time taking care of Lucas. She pointed out how this is my nephew, and if I adopt kids, I will need to make sacrifices too, to which I said, okay, I will make them when the time comes, but I'm not Lucas's dad, and although I'm happy to help where I can, I shouldn't be expected to change my life for him. So Mary took a day off, but since the appointment, she hasn't spoken to me except for saying a yes or no answer when I talked to her, and she's been keeping Lucas in her room when he's not at daycare. Now, I love the little guy with all my life, and I'm wondering if maybe I took things just a little bit too far. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you are not the jerk, because honestly, it really seems like she's taking advantage of your kindness. Let's look at the facts here. You literally let her into your house, and you said, okay, I will help you out and I will help you get back on your feet. But like, couldn't you argue that now she definitely is on her own feet? She has a job, she's working, and she now, at least to me, seems like she's ready to take care of her kid by herself. Like, I'm just as compassionate towards anybody else when it comes to being like a single mom or dad. Like, I can only imagine how hard that must be, and truly, my sympathy goes out to Mary in the story. But at this point, it really seems like she's taking advantage of your kindness, and she's trying to force you to step in as the father when you definitely never signed up for that. You're just trying to help her on hard times, and that's literally all you wanted to do. So no, I don't think you're the jerk for saying no, and I honestly think it's a good idea that you set boundaries, because the way she's being demanding and now giving you the silent treatment, in my opinion, is so uncalled for, and you definitely do not deserve that, especially considering all the things that you did for Mary as well as her son. Am I the jerk for not telling telling my sister that I ran into her ex-husband while I was shopping at Target, because right now she feels offended, but I'm just left scratching my head if I did something wrong, because right now I really don't know what to do. Okay, so I'm a 30-year-old male, and I got a call at about 12:30 in the morning from my sister who is a year older than I am. She led the conversation with confirming details for a thing that we have later today, and I'm confident that that was just a lead-in because we didn't discuss anything different from what we had already confirmed earlier in the day, so to call me after midnight for that was really not a likely excuse. Well, I didn't have to wait long to find out what the true reason was for her calling. A few months ago, I ran into her ex-husband at a Target self-checkout. The two of them got divorced about a year and a half ago, and they are amicable, but they both seem to hold on to some unresolved feelings. Now, for reference, he and I have always gotten along, and he's also well-liked by family in general, although my younger sister has expressed to me that she has harbored some resentment for some of his behavior around the time leading up to the divorce. I wasn't privy to the details, and I generally have some grace for people not showing up as the best versions of themselves, especially during something as stressful as a divorce. So yeah, we ran into each other. We spoke for a few minutes, we hugged, and then we went on our ways. And I haven't seen, heard from, or reached out to him ever since. However, my sister feels offended that I didn't tell her that I happened to run into him. And to be clear, it's not for any safety concerns or anything of that nature. The phrase that she used was that, oh, it got back to her. And I guess he mentioned it to a mutual friend of theirs at some point, and it recently got mentioned to her. She feels offended and thinks it should have been obvious for me to know that I should have mentioned something like that to her, and that she's disappointed that she had to hear it from someone else. Meanwhile, I'm doing my best to be empathetic, but I'm also thinking like, what are you talking about? I didn't think such a random occurrence warranted me being notified by her. If anything, I can see that she's had some highs and lows in the aftermath of it all, so I was probably less inclined to even bring it up, because if you're in the process of trying to get over someone, me bringing them up for an unimportant, trivial reason seems like it could potentially be triggering. Now, as it is, I don't need all of her requests to make sense to me. If my sister wants me to do that for her, it's honestly no problem at all, regardless of if it makes sense in my mind or not. But I had to exit our phone conversation rather abruptly. Also, I could avoid all of this turning into an argument because I felt like I was being chastised for something I had no awareness of, and I don't think my actions or non-actions were unreasonable or problematic. She's of the opinion that I should have known to alert her of any interactions I have with either of her ex-husbands. I've never been married, but if the shoe were on the other foot, I can't imagine myself caring that much about it. Am I missing something here? Is there some kind of etiquette or protocol for stuff like this that I'm just not aware of? What should I do? Okay, in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk here, because it sounds like the interaction you had on Target was really pretty straightforward. Like, this really was not that big of a deal, and I just don't think this warrants her being like, oh yeah, I'm gonna call you at midnight. Like, I don't know about you, but that seems really extreme and kind of like a little bit weird in my opinion. Like, sure, it kind of seems like she does have a lot of things going on, and she clearly has some kind of like negative feelings towards her ex-husband or whatever's going on, but that really should not involve you in the slightest. If you were like meeting up with him and going to like baseball games or hanging out together or something like that, then sure, I think that would warrant you having to talk to her about it and be like, hey, I do have like a friendship with him. But this situation is definitely not that. You haven't gone out of your way to meet this guy. You literally just saw him in the Target self-checkout, and that was it. This was literally just a freak incident where you ran into each other in the wild. So no, I don't think you're the jerk at all. And if anything, I think this is just evidence that your sister is clearly still mourning the loss of her marriage. And I think that might be something to consider the next time she comes to you about something of this nature. An entitled jerk makes my life a living nightmare, as he constantly complains that his product he ordered from my company hasn't arrived when he wanted it to. So I decided to maliciously comply by throwing this guy a curveball in a way he will never forget. Here's what happened. Okay, so I've worked my way up the ladder at the company where I work, but when I started, I was a support agent. By the time this story happened, I was a team lead of some kind, but I don't remember which. What matters is that I still worked directly supporting customers, but I also had a fair amount of agency, meaning that I didn't have to ask for permission or assistance to do anything related to my job. We're a software company, but we used to sell a specific small Bluetooth accessory that worked with one of our applications. It came in several bright colors, and we sold multi-packs. This was also the kind of device you might need more than one of, and it was a popular gift. One year during the Christmas season, our manufacturer messed up gloriously. They didn't deliver all of the inventory we were supposed to get, and worse, much of what we did get was messed up and had serious defects on them. It was a horrible mess and a serious detriment to our small company, and I was on the front lines of cleaning it up. We wound up severely backordered at the busiest time of year, having sold units that should have been delivered, but that we either never received or found found to be defective upon arrival. We had to contact people and let them know their orders would be delayed until after the holidays. Some people wanted refunds and other people wanted their items late. We tried to be helpful and bent over backwards to be apologetic, all while trying to keep this debacle from becoming a catastrophe and incentivizing people not to cancel. There was one man who wanted us to perform magic, however. He wanted his order, our largest multi-pack, and he wanted it now. I don't know how many times he contacted us, but I wound up being the only one to deal with him because he would always be escalated to me. I told him over and over again that we couldn't send his order even though we very much wanted to, so we'd be happy to just refund him. If he wanted to wait, there were many others ahead of him to get their orders. Well, he demanded that he get his order done first, and he didn't really care about anyone else that had to wait. He would berate me and try to literally command me to do as he said almost daily for a while. And this is all no matter how many times I explained why I literally couldn't. Eventually, I opened the spreadsheet where we were keeping our back orders, and I moved him to the very bottom. And sure, I was prolonging my own suffering, but this guy had me feeling very petty. After the holidays ended and upper management waged a nuclear war with our manufacturer, the usable stock started rolling in. I bumped a few deserving or eager customers to the top of the list, but mostly I sent them out to order. This guy is the only one I bumped down, but I had something ready for the next time he decided to scream at me. When he inevitably did, I told him we had stock, but others were receiving theirs first, and we had not yet gotten the colors he ordered in his multi-pack. Now, I was sort of planning to do what I did anyways, but he was kind enough to give me explicit permission. He then screamed at me, "I don't care what colors you send. You're gonna send them to me immediately." And you know what? One of our colors included Susan G. Komen pink. The customer was gloriously smug and condescending when I told him we'd go ahead and fulfill his order right away. He definitely thought he had won some kind of victory, but sure enough, the day his package arrived, he sent me an email complaining about all of it. He said to me, "I know I said I'd accept any color, but really? You sent me, a man, an order of nothing but pink? I want these replaced. Send me something else." Well, I told him that's all we had available for him and that conversation was over. And so, as it was, I never heard from this guy ever again. It took a few years before I brought it up, but I've told that anecdote at workplace meetings a few times, including to my boss, the CEO. And I wouldn't take another support job to save an orphan puppy on Earth, but that story was absolutely worth the misery. Yeah, that guy was super demanding and incredibly rude. Seriously, all you have to do is show some semblance of kindness, and in my opinion, a lot of customer service people would probably be more than willing to help you out. At least that's how I felt when I worked those kinds of jobs. It's the people that were like really pushy and rude and condescending towards me that left me with a bad taste in my mouth and very resistant to ever helping them ever again. Like seriously, show me some semblance of like decency and like human kindness, and I will go a long way just to make sure you get what you need. But if you're mean and rude and treat me like dirt, or even act like you're like above me and I'm somehow your slave, like that's the fast track to me ignoring your request and literally putting you at the bottom of the list like this guy did. And for the record, no, I don't think that was petty. I think that's karma working its magic, not to mention the fact that you gave him the brightest pink color he could possibly ever not want. So good for you for getting back at this guy in the way that you did, because his attitude absolutely deserved to get shut down. Am I the jerk for not giving my stepsister my great-grandparents' house, as she claims that she deserves it more than me? Here's what happened. Okay, to make a very long story short, my great-grandparents passed away about 20 years ago, and the house had to be torn down to the studs and rebuilt for several reasons. I'm a 24-year-old female. I was living with my mother in my late grandmother's house with her boyfriend, who is now her husband, and his son, who is about 23 years old. But as tension rose between me and her husband, we'll call him Bob for the sake of the story, as well as her son, who we will call Connor, I decided to move out and get my own apartment. I was tired of being disrespected and made out to be a villain because his son was seen as a perfect angel. I would still come to visit my mother often, but I would leave once either of them got home. Eventually, work finally started on the project house, and basically anything that could be done without a specialist, we did. So me, Bob, Connor, and my mom worked on this house for 5 years. There was a lot of debate regarding who would get the house, either me or Connor, but they decided I would get it because I was living by myself and Connor was refusing to pay rent, which was in a contract he signed with my mom and Bob. And they also decided this for a few other reasons, such as that it's my great-grandparents' parents' house. I have been living in my mini dream home, think maybe a 2-bedroom cottage with about 900 square feet, for about 4 months now. My stepsister, we'll call her Amy, suddenly comes back into the picture because she will date a guy for a few months and then cheat on him and live with a guy she cheated on him with. And she's done this about 7 or 8 times now. Her child is about 5 years old and has been bounced around with her. Recently, she started calling her father, who is Bob in the story, and as asking to move in with him, but he said no, as there's no room for her and a child, let alone her horses. And trust me, she cares more about her horses than her own kid. Fast forward a week, and she's calling again saying, okay, is Sunday okay for him to come pick up the trailer? And Bob asked her where she thinks a huge horse trailer would go, and that's when she says that it's gonna go behind my house. But Bob said that she would need to ask me if that's something that I would want behind the house in the first place. Eventually, she goes quiet. She says to me, can you ask her? She'll just say no to me. But it's like, are you kidding me? You literally just answered your own question. So Bob ends up laughing and says, well, I think she hates me more than you, so good luck with that. Another week goes by and she throws another fit, this time demanding the house. Because according to her, why should I get to live in a nice 2-bedroom house when I don't have any kids or even a boyfriend? Now, her mom, who is Bob's ex, is taking Amy's side and yelling at Bob to give Amy the house. But Bob ends up getting into a fight with the mom about it because it really doesn't seem fair. Now, mind you, I am the only child who has had to work for everything. The house is the only thing I ever got handed to me, and I helped pay for most of it because it was what I wanted. They get whatever they want whenever they want. That is, except for the house. So am I the jerk for putting my foot down and telling my stepsister that she cannot kick me out of my own house? What should I do? You are not the jerk, and I can't believe she even tried to assume that you should leave and she should take it. Your stepsister sounds incredibly irresponsible and very entitled. Like seriously, who's gonna walk up and be like, oh, give me the house, I deserve it, as if her having a baby out of wedlock, as well as cheating on multiple guys, 8 times, somehow means that she's deserving to not only use your property for her stupid horses, but also try to pretend like, oh yeah, I deserve it more than you. But also, can we talk about that for a second? She literally is going from place to place and she still owns horses. Now, I don't know that much about horses. I'm very ignorant on the subject matter, so please take what I'm gonna say with a grain of salt. But I do know people who own horses, and my god, they are so expensive. There is so much time and effort that goes into taking care of those animals that it's honestly amazing to me that someone who sounds this irresponsible even has one horse to begin with, let alone multiple ones. Like, wouldn't you think that maybe if you're having problems, it might be time to sell the horses or at least give them to somebody else? And sure, I get it, they're more than pets, they're like part of the family and all that stuff, but this lady that's being described in this story honestly fits the bill as somebody who not only should not have kids, but also should not be owning large animals like that. So no, you are definitely not the jerk for putting your foot down, because in my opinion, her behavior is incredibly inappropriate. My entitled father-in-law oversteps his boundaries by trying to walk in the middle of my wife giving birth. But after turning him away and dealing with instances similar to this, my father-in-law decided to go on the attack by talking trash about me and my wife on Facebook simply because we asked for some space while my wife was giving birth. And I seriously can't believe the way this guy acted, and I really hope I never have to deal with him ever again. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened about 8 years ago when my wife and I had our firstborn child as a natural birth. My wife's biological father wanted to be there and came like 2 weeks before the due date. He even got a place within walking distance of our house, so he would randomly show up to hang out with her, literally during her time at home on maternity leave as well. Now, this wasn't every day, but it was often enough that it annoyed her as it was always without warning. He also asked her a few times to go and drive him to the bottle shop just so we could stock up on booze. She ended up being a few weeks late, and he seemed to blame us for that just a little bit. Then when the day came and we went to the hospital, we got there at 7 and our daughter was born at 10. He then appeared at the door at 10:15, trying to get in while we were still sorting things out. Like, my wife did just give birth after all. He then came back later when it finally calmed down and it was fine. Fast forward a week and he was still staying nearby. My wife was struggling with breastfeeding, so we had an in-house consultation with a midwife to come over and see if they could help us through this time. Well, 5 minutes into this, we hear a knock at the door, and at this point, I lost my cool with him. I went out to the front and I basically asked him, do you ever call first? When I said that, he apologized and then he went home. And I really do feel pretty awful about that, but it was a stressful time, especially with someone else trying to enter the mix. Jump ahead 3 years and baby number 2 is on the way. And once again, my wife's father wanted to be here when it happened. But this time we told him straight up that we don't want a repeat of what happened last time, and that he needs to please respect our privacy and boundaries. Well, baby number 2 was inverted, so we needed to get a C-section. We booked it, we gave the people the date, but also said we will invite everyone to the hospital once we are ready for visitors and the operation is complete. Eventually, my son is born, and we get back to the room for recovery, and my wife is with the midwives literally cleaning her up and getting her settled. But as that's happening, we hear a knock at the door, and it's her dad once again. And at this point, we just roll our eyes and go with it, as it seems he will never learn. But then things take a twist. My son has a respiratory issue that starts to become an issue the next morning. So he gets rushed to ICU, goes into an iron lung-like device, and my wife and I spend the next week pretty much by his side. And during this time, my 3-year-old daughter has come to visit once or twice with my mom, who is also staying close by. Well, my wife's father gets jealous that he does not get to see our 3-year-old child or even his new grandson. So he decides to post on Facebook that we are shutting him out and that his entire trip was a waste, all because we're supposedly denying him access to his grandkids. But you know what? He was literally the last thing we were thinking about during that week. About a week after this, my son is stable and the main issue seems to have sorted itself out and we can finally take him home. By this point, my wife's dad has flown back to his hometown and has another go on Facebook, and all of his side of the family has turned on us just a little bit. My wife then details what happened in a post, and his support dried up pretty quickly once the full story got out. It took about 3 years after this before he got back in good terms with us, and my wife was pretty much done, but I went to bat for him to give him another shot, and we thankfully have not had a repeat like that ever since. And hopefully, for the sake of me and my family, it stays like that for as long as possible. Wow, the father-in-law in this story oversteps so many boundaries. For starters, the fact that he showed up right after your wife gave birth, and she's sitting there literally exposed after going through probably the hardest thing she's ever gone through. Like, not only do I wonder how he even got back there in the first place, but also that is so rude and obnoxious. And the original poster and his wife have it right. Why can't this guy ever call ahead of time to see if this is a good time? Because I don't know about you, but I despise drop-ins. Like, especially when it's something like super stressful that I'm going through, or some kind of like life event. For me personally, I would rather have somebody call ahead of time to see if this is a good time, instead of dropping by unannounced and just completely interrupting something that is probably really hard for me right now. So honestly, I think the way you guys handled this was perfect, and I'm so glad that you guys defended yourself and put the record straight. Because even though the father-in-law in this story is finally behaving himself, this will hopefully be a lesson that this guy won't forget anytime soon. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. I feel that my job is overworking me and neglecting any of its responsibilities to help its employees. And now that I'm receiving less tips as a server, I'm starting to reconsider if this job is even right for me. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So to start things out, I work for a hotel as a breakfast server for the buffet. I work the standard 40 hours a week, and I start at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I get gratuity and some cash and card tips whenever. But the thing is, nobody wants to work there. Everyone wants to work at the restaurant because tips are way better, and the managers don't want to work in my section because they don't get any tips. They always schedule random people or servers from the restaurant just to get extra hours. They literally come for 5 hours just to bus tables and fill, and then many times they just disappear. Like, they go to the restroom or they sit in the counter chair, and I'm working my butt off, and then I get all the responsibility, such as from my manager taking pictures if an area is dirty. We get many people coming in, maybe about 200 people per day overtaking things. And then, yeah, of course, people leave, and they get like 40% of my gratuity. They're not restocking anything, they're not taking any of the trash out, and then we sometimes open in the evening, and the night shift barely sets anything up. Sometimes some people no show, no call, and they still have the job and get no write-up. Most of them are friends, and the managers are hanging out with them and drinking, so they just don't even care. I talked to one of the managers, but yeah, they definitely didn't care. There's no food or beverage director, and they can barely hire anybody. They hired another new manager, and she told me how it's been crazy, and that people are not showing up, and then nothing happens. Before, I would work with another manager, and all the tips would go to me. But now that I pull my money, everything's decreased. I used to make about $1,000 a week in tips, but now I make maybe $400 to $500. Now, I like the place, but I am overworked, and people throw responsibility on me and just don't do anything. And now I'm making less money. What should I do? Okay, for starters, I don't think you actually like your job. Like, everything you mentioned in this story is literally negative. These people are clearly taking advantage of your willingness to work, and they're also literally not even taking the time to do their job. Like, I can understand why people are quitting and not showing back up. They're not supporting their staff, and they're literally doing very little to help people out. Like, for all intents and purposes, this does not sound like a good work environment at all. So if I was in your shoes, I would be reconsidering working here in the first place. They don't sound like a good working environment, and honestly, you can find way better than this. And I totally understand your frustrations, by the way, especially when you're the only one doing your job and trying to like get things done. So hopefully you can find something better than this, because the job you're describing sounds absolutely awful. An entitled Karen and her husband husband, screams and cries at me and my coworkers, all because she feels that our prices are too expensive at our family-owned restaurant. Here's what happened. So I work at a small family-owned barbecue restaurant. It's set up like Subway, where you go down the line and order what you want, and then we ring you up and take your payment at the end. I will say though that the food is hot and fresh and definitely good quality. Now, it's not cheap, but we certainly have plenty of people willing to pay the prices. My bosses, namely the husband and the wife who own the restaurant, are genuinely good people who try to keep the prices reasonable while also trying to be able to keep paying their employees a livable wage and give us benefits. Anyways, the other night, this entitled couple came in. As soon as you walk in, there are two large TV screens right next to each other with our menus posted on them. One lists the sandwiches and the other one lists the plates. Obviously, the plates are more expensive because it is a lot more meat, plus it comes with sides. And we do also sell all of our meats by the pound, and this is clearly stated on the menu, so you can order smaller portions of meat if you want to. But anyways, both the husband and wife ordered brisket plates, and the brisket is the most expensive meat, but also the most popular that everybody raves about. The brisket plate is $20, and apparently the wife did not know this. As I rang them up at the end, she let out a surprised gasp as she looked at what I rang up on the screen and demanded to know why they were being charged $20 per plate when the menu said that they were only $10.99. She apparently had only looked at the section of the menu that listed the sandwiches because the brisket sandwich is $10.99. And I would really like to know what decade she's living in if she thinks a half pound of brisket and two sides would be $10.99. You can barely even get a meal at McDonald's for that cheap anymore. Well, this is how the conversation went. I said to her, "Oh, the $10.99 is for the sandwich. The plates are more expensive because they automatically come with the sides." She said to me, "Well, I didn't see anything else on the menu other than those prices for the sandwiches. This is ridiculous. We definitely won't be coming back here. And you didn't charge us for anything extra?" I looked at her and I said, "No, ma'am, I did not." She then lets out a frustrated huff as she says to me, "So it really costs almost $50 for two people to eat here?" But I said to her, "Well, that depends on what you order. Brisket is our most expensive meat, but we have several cheaper options." This entitled Karen then looks at her husband. "Well, do we even have that kind of money?" Now, the husband, who has been silent the whole time, sheepishly pulls out three $20 bills and hands them to me. She then says loud enough for me to hear, "Wow, no wonder their parking lot is empty." And you know what? For reference, it was actually only about 20 minutes before closing time, which was the only reason our parking lot was ever empty, because in reality, we had just gotten through a very busy dinner rush earlier in the evening with plenty of people who would gladly pay $20 for brisket. So trust me, if they never come back, they definitely would not be missed. Yeah, I will never understand someone who goes into like a family-run restaurant and tries to start some kind of weird argument, especially after they don't read the menu. Like seriously, I'm pretty sure it's well explained that yes, the option you're getting is more expensive for this reason. And it's so funny that they try to take shots at your restaurant, even though you guys were ready to lock up. They first come in with this weird attitude, then they say they're never coming back, only to then insult the place that's giving you dinner. So hopefully they don't come back, because that kind of attitude is awful, and I would hate for you to have to deal with that for a second time. Am I the jerk for telling my husband that he couldn't buy another $300 reptile after he lost a different one that he bought literally 5 weeks ago? Here's what happened. So my husband and I were butting heads for about 6 months because he wanted to buy a snake, and I did not want one in the house at all. I finally broke down and said that if he got one, I wanted nothing to do with it, and that it had to be in the basement. Well, he ended up spending about $800 on all the stuff for the snake, and the snake escaped the enclosure within 24 hours of getting it. Mind you, this snake cost $250 alone, and this was 5 weeks ago, and we still haven't found it. So now he has decided he wants to get some sort of exotic lizard that will be around $350, plus he is going to need a few more accessories for it. He also said that it will outgrow the current enclosure that was meant for the snake within the year, and that he will need to purchase a bigger one in the future. I then started expressing my annoyance at how expensive this is getting, and I then asked him if he could just get something smaller and not as expensive. He then started ranting about how I pay $200 a month for a gym membership, and that I can do that but won't let him get a reptile. But I don't think a gym membership and a reptile are even on the same level. My gym membership is for my health, an investment that will pay for itself over time. I go to the gym 5 to 6 days a week, so it's not like I'm paying for it and not using it. It's a CrossFit type of gym with instructor-led classes. I've lost 28 pounds since January, and finally I'm feeling better about my body. So to me, this reptile is something he wants and not needs. It would be like me spending $1,000 on a new pair of shoes or something like that. So am I the jerk for not letting him spend another couple $100 on a second reptile because we lost the first one, even though I spend $200 a month on a gym membership? What should I do? Okay, this story is insane to me because seriously, there's like a glaring detail that needs to be addressed. Where in the world did the snake go? You don't just get a snake and say, oh no, I lost it. Time to get something else, it's fine. Like no, I would be tearing my house apart trying to find that stupid snake. I wouldn't be able to sleep, go to the bathroom, or literally do anything in that house until that snake is identified and caught. Like why was that not a priority for this guy? Why wouldn't he be like, wow, I spent, I don't know, $1,000 getting this set up. Maybe I should try to find this snake and not waste all this money for nothing. Like for him to go on to like the next exotic animal without first addressing this issue is insane in my opinion. And you know what? Him trying to compare your gym membership to his stupid pets is just as stupid as you think it sounds. It really doesn't make any sense and there's really no good excuse for that. Because like you said, your gym membership and these pets are not the same thing. One of them is for your health and the other one is just because, I don't know, he wants it. So no, you are not the jerk for shutting him down because the way he's been acting, in my opinion, is absolutely insane. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for demanding my payment from my sister-in-law for an art commission that she hired me for? Here's what happened. I'm a 20-year-old female and I do digital art commissions. And I can make stickers and prints or just digital copies. My wife, who's 20 years old, has a brother, and that brother has a girlfriend. I made a drawing for my wife for free, and my sister-in-law asked for a drawing. It was something new for me, but I accepted and I took the request, warning her that this would cost her some money. But with that in mind, my prices are cheap, and I can wait for any kind of payment, especially if I know them. After I gave her the art that she asked for, I told her my payment options and how much, maybe 15 to 20 bucks. And she said that she just started her new job and that she gets paid in 3 days. And you know what? I was fine with waiting. Fast forward to 3 days later, and I finally asked her, and she said she couldn't because she had to pay rent because they still live with my wife's parents. So I waited 2 more weeks and then I talked to my wife. I asked her if she thought that I would get paid, and she gave me the truth. She said that she doesn't think that they're late on rent, but instead she's wasting all of her money online just shopping for stuff. Now at this point, I got upset. I waited a day or two and then I texted her and I said the following. Hey there, I just wanted to see if you had gotten paid yet because I've been told that you aren't known to pay dues. I really need that money and it's not expensive. Please and thank you. Well, she gave me the money and later on went screaming to my wife's brother, to which he took his anger out on my wife. I felt so bad for making my sister-in-law mad because my wife had a good relationship with her brother and my sister-in-law almost left him. I've had people tell me that I was the jerk for not waiting longer and for saying it in the way that I did. So I need to know, am I the jerk in this scenario? What should I do? First of all, of course you're not the jerk. Why on earth would this lady ask for an art commission if she was not ready to pay the artist in the first place? That literally is so backwards it's not even funny. And it's not fair for the original poster to put all this work into an art piece only to then be forced to like chase down this person and figure out if they're even gonna pay you or not. Like if you're really struggling with rent and all this other money problems, then maybe you shouldn't be hiring an artist to make you some kind of artwork. Like talk about completely burning a bridge right in front of you, because if I was the original poster, I would never take another art request from that lady. Like she would be blacklisted in my opinion. Also, I would not feel bad about this at all. Is this sister-in-law seriously getting upset because she had to pay for something that she hired you for? Like seriously, what's her problem? Just pay the 20 bucks and move on with your life. It is literally not that much. And it's not like she didn't know the price ahead of time. Like she literally knew, okay, this is super cheap and I can probably do this. So in my opinion, no, you are definitely not the jerk, because what you're asking honestly should have been taken care of like right away. And for you to have to wait weeks just to get any kind of payment, in my opinion, is a really messed up thing to do. Am I the jerk for telling my parents exactly how I feel about our families, especially considering how complicated everything's become? Here's what happened. Okay, it's important to note that my parents are messy people. They were together for years, had my brother, and then broke up when he was 8, but stayed married, just not living together. And neither of them filed for divorce. They ended up getting back together after a few years, and then they had me. But they were over for good by the time I was 1 year old and had finally filed for divorce. Both of them got into other relationships and then cheated on those relationships with each other before finally settling into the marriages they're currently in. I was 8 when my mom got married and 10 when my dad got married. And those relationships started 2 to 3 years before the marriages. My mom's husband had 2 kids when he met my mom, with both of them being younger than me. And together they had 2 more kids who are now 7 and 4 years old. My dad's wife had 3 kids technically when they they got married, with one being her stepkid, who sees her as her mom, and the other two are her biological kids from the marriage with the stepkid's father. Together, they have a 5-year-old, and they also have taken in my wife's 2 nephews from her sibling who passed away, and they decided to adopt them. There has been this tug of war between both sides for literally as long as I can remember them being together. My brother got out of all of it, and he could do that by the time it all really started popping off. But I was stuck in the middle of it. My mom and dad wanted me to prefer their side and shove their kids and stepkids down my throat so I would have a stronger relationship with either side. They compete for me to show the most attention to their family. They make it into something crazy and way too complicated. Like I'm supposed to see dad's side as true siblings, even the non-biological ones, and somehow love them more than anything else according to my dad. And according to my mom, it's her side that I have to feel that way about. They have always asked which siblings I prefer, or they ask leading questions about which side I prefer, where it's not directly asking me that, but you know that's what it's about. 2 days ago, we had this meeting with people from my school. It's my senior year, and I'm a part of an educational program for school for speech and reading. During the meeting, they brought personal stuff into it, and it spilled out more once we left. They directly asked me which siblings I prefer and who I'm closest to, and they also wanted to know how I really feel about everything and so much more. So I said exactly what was on my mind. I told them that my brother is the only sibling that I really love, that he's my favorite family member, and really it's the only sibling that I have a connection to, and that I see him way more than they realize. And when I said that, they were completely shocked, not only about my answer, but the fact that my brother and I stayed close and see each other when he doesn't even see any of the other kids. And it was right then that my parents got incredibly pissed. They started yelling, and that's when I told them that they can't ask questions and then blow up at me when they don't like the answers. But my parents said they can do what they like as my parents, and they even made it another big deal yesterday, where I had my mom on the phone, and since I was at my dad's, he was also bothering me about it. So am I the jerk for the way that I answered my parents' question? Because right now I am exhausted dealing with the way they treat me, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, let me just say first and foremost that this is probably one of the most complicated family situations I've ever heard of. Quite literally, you have so many step siblings it's not even funny, and the fact that you're somehow supposed to keep track of that on top of like, I don't know, entertaining both sides of the family must be incredibly stressful and so hard to deal with. Like I'm starting to understand why your brother was like, no, I'm definitely not dealing with that. Because if I was in his shoes, I would be like, wow, I dodged a train. This is a disaster waiting to happen, and seriously, I would be glad to be away from that. But you don't have that luxury. The original poster is 17 years old, and they are literally stuck in between 2 families, and it is simply not fair. Because you should not be forced to pick a side. If your parents were doing this right, and they weren't trying to use you as some kind of like bargaining chip to prove the other person wrong, then they would be supportive of you in trying to figure your life out, because they literally made everything so complicated. So I can say if I was in your shoes, I probably would have reacted the same way. I would have chosen my brother as well, just so neither party can ever win any of these arguments that you never wanted to be a part of, because their behavior right now is incredibly inappropriate, and you do not deserve to go through this kind of stress in the slightest. My friend lied to me about having cancer, all in some weird attempt to try and see if I even care about him in the first place. But now our friendship is practically ruined, as I am now highly considering blocking him and never talking to him ever again. This story also came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own stories, and don't forget to subscribe to Am I the Jerk. Okay, just for a bit of context, I'm a 17-year-old male, and my friend, who we will call Jack, is 16 years old. For a while, I've had braces because of my underbite, and when Jax called me, my dad was driving me home from my dentist appointment, which Jack absolutely knew I had at the time, and he's almost perfect every time at guessing when I'm done with them. On the way home, he FaceTimed me while I was laying in bed. He was groaning, and he actually looked really sick, and when I asked him what was wrong, he told me straight up, I have cancer. I sat there for a second thinking about what he just said. He wasn't on speakerphone, but since I was sitting next to my dad in front of him, my dad asked me if anything was wrong, and I just said no and went back to Jack. I then asked him, are you serious? Which he responded by saying yes. I then asked him if he was in the hospital, and he said no again, to which I responded by saying, okay, well, why not? Does nobody know what's going on? He then told me, oh, after they gave me this thing that is attached to my arm, they let me go home. After he said that, I knew that something was off. So I asked him, okay, could you show me the thing on your arm? To which he said, I don't feel comfortable doing that. So at this point, I thought he must be going through it right now, so I just didn't want to push it. So I told him that I had to go, and that I would call him back later on, and to please get better soon. After I hung up, I told my dad that my friend friend just called me and said that he had cancer. My dad then asked me if I was sure, and I said yes. Well, 1 week later, I get a call from my other friend who we will call Aaron, and Aaron is in the friend group with me, him, and Jack. And apparently, Jack had called him and said that he had COVID, but I cut him off and said, yes, I know he has cancer. To which Aaron responded by saying, okay, but I thought he had COVID. Well, once I heard that, I knew that Jack had been lying to me. So I told Aaron that Jack was definitely lying. And he said that he already knew that because he had just been in his house yesterday, and there were no signs of anything that would prove that he was even sick. So me and Aaron came up with a plan to get him to confess. But the day that we were going to go through with our plan, I get a notification from Jack. Aaron was with me in the house, so I brought my phone to him, and we read it all together. The text was from Jack, and he was confessing that he lied and he was sorry. Now, I was happy he confessed, but then what he did actually sank in, and I was absolutely pissed. The main reason I was mad was that, for starters, my uncle died to cancer when I was very young. Secondly, his excuse for it was to say, I just wanted to see if you cared about me. So after this, me and Aaron stopped talking to him. Aaron blocked him, but I didn't, because I feel like I was too harsh, and every now and then, I text him something, still trying to figure out why he did it, because I don't believe he only did it because he thought I didn't care about him. So am I the jerk here? What should I do? Okay, I'm gonna say it straight up. Your friend Jack is a massive piece of crap. First of all, anyone who's like, oh yeah, I have cancer, and then turns around and says, oh yeah, I was lying to see if you actually care about me. Like, that is such a horrible thing to do. It legitimately has no good excuse. I don't even care that this guy's a teenager. That is not something you joke about or even like lie about in any capacity. And I honestly think that anyone who would lie about having cancer is a massive piece of garbage. And that's my honest opinion, because just like the original poster, I've also had family members who've been affected by cancer, and that is just downright offensive to lie about. So for him to do this is really just so disrespectful, and if that was me, I would lose trust in him completely after that. Like, what else is he lying about just to gain attention? Because legitimately, that's all this was. He was just doing some weird attention-seeking behavior in probably one of the worst ways possible. So no, I don't think you're the jerk for pulling away from him, and I think your friend Aaron is really smart in this scenario for straight up blocking him, because I really believe that this is not someone you want to call your friend, and I think you can absolutely do better than somebody who lies about having cancer. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for refusing to let my daughter try and pursue swimming as a professional career by telling her that it's too late to even get started? Because right now, my husband is very upset with me, and at this point, I seriously do not know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 45-year-old female, and I have 2 kids. I have a 16-year-old female that we will call Laura, and a 14-year-old male that we will call Kyle. Both of my kids take competitive swimming as a hobby. However, Laura is more athletically inclined than Kyle is, and takes swimming more seriously than he does. She has been to regional and state championships a few times since elementary school, and has even gotten close to qualifying for nationals a year ago. Recently, Laura came up to me and told me that she really looks up to athletes like Michael Phelps and other great swimming legends in Australia and across the globe. She is a huge Olympics fanatic like our family, so I wasn't surprised at first. However, she then told me that she wanted to pursue swimming professionally, because in her words, she's made a lot of progress and thinks it's possible for her to get to the Olympics if she just keeps training harder. She also told me she really wants to represent Australia at the Olympics in the future, and that she cannot live without swimming. However, I shut her down really quickly after she said that. I told her that there's athletes younger than her already swimming at the Olympics in the preliminary stages, and even at the finals. I reminded her that Michael Phelps was only 15 years old at his first Olympics, and she didn't even qualify for nationals. And then I finally said that it was a bit late for her to try and pursue swimming professionally. I then reminded her how rigorous and strict the training was, both physically and mentally, how it was much more different than her swimming lessons. I also told her that she could put aside swimming until university, and that education was much more effective than athleticism. Well, after I said that, my daughter looked sad and nodded before heading to her dad's room, and I heard crying in his room. After half an hour had passed, my husband came downstairs and confronted me by saying that what I told my daughter was extremely cruel and it put down her self-esteem significantly. I retaliated back, saying that I was only expressing concern for Laura and that my concerns were realistic. After I told my husband my thoughts, we got into a bit of a dispute, because in my husband's words, my daughter's dreams were very realistic and that I shouldn't police my daughter's career autonomy. So I really need to know, am I the jerk for what I said to my daughter? What should I do? Okay, I'm gonna take a pretty firm stance here and say that yes, you are absolutely the jerk. Your daughter is 16 years old. She has her entire life ahead of her when it comes to like figuring out a career. So for you to shoot down her dreams like that all at the drop of a hat and then have the audacity to compare her to Michael Phelps and be like, well, he made it to the Olympics at 15 and you didn't even qualify for nationals. Like that really sucks, and I really cannot believe you would do that to your own kid. This would be different if they were 26 and they said, oh, I want to be a competitive swimmer. Like at that point, I would agree if you said, okay, it's way too late to do this. You need to figure your life out, and this is not the time to pursue something new like this. But that's not what your daughter's doing. Like, you don't know what kind of future she could have in swimming. She very easily could excel and be a really good swimmer on an international stage. And by the way, if you're really from Australia, the fact that she's coming close to getting into nationals, in my opinion, is a huge deal. Australia has some of the best swimmers on the planet. Like, who's to say she wouldn't break through in her senior year of high school, make it into like the national competition, and then excel from there? Like, you definitely don't know that. And who's to say that she wouldn't use her swimming to go to college? Like, the way you handle this was completely inappropriate and very cruel. Like, your husband is 100% right. So yes, I think you're the jerk, and I think you really should apologize to your daughter, because she is still young and she has every right to dream just as much as anybody. Am I the jerk for telling my father that he's no longer allowed to cook for my kids after he tried to cook us meat that expired over 3 years ago? Because right now, my dad is very offended, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 30-year-old female, and my father shops like a doomsday prepper. Whenever he gets groceries, he buys enough to feed a family of 5. He's also the type to buy food that he doesn't plan on eating anytime soon, and he has it just in case he might crave it. And trust me, this has always been a problem. When I was younger, my sister and I spent more time at our mom's place, and we weren't there often enough to eat much. Nowadays, he lives alone, so even less of what he buys is even eaten. The result has always been the same. A lot of the food that he buys ends up either spoiled or sitting in a freezer until the end of time. We've never eaten anything that's rotten or moldy, but my dad has always refused to listen when I tell him this is bad for his health. My family went to his place for dinner about a week ago, and I arrived to help my father out as he planned on making burgers, and my husband would come later with our kids. I had offered to buy some burgers when we decided on them, but my father said that he had some at his place. I didn't think anything about what that could mean until I saw him pull out a box of burgers and some cheese from the very bottom of the freezer. Now, as both had clearly been there for a while, I checked the expiration dates. The cheese expired in February, and the burgers expired in March of 2021. I asked my father if he actually planned on cooking that food, and he said yes, as both were frozen and still fine to eat according to him. I told him I didn't care how edible he thought the food was. The meat was older than my daughter. We could think about something else to make, or I could have my husband pick up some burgers on his way to my dad's place, but I am not having my kids eat that. Well, when I said that, my father got offended. He started going on about how the food was safe and how a dozen nutritionists had said so, but these are literally some guys his girlfriend found on TikTok. He said he couldn't believe I didn't trust him. He continued talking about how dramatic I was being for a while, but I was very upset at the way he responded. Finally, I said to him, my kids aren't eating that, and I don't want you cooking for them again. Either my husband buys the burgers or we are not staying for dinner. Well, eventually, my husband ended up buying the burgers, and we ate them peacefully, and no one fought in front of the kids. The next day, my father told me he was upset by what I said. He said he felt offended that I'd accused him of putting his grandchildren in danger like that, but I told him that wasn't my intention. I just didn't want to feed my kids 3-year-old meat, but he just refused to listen to me. My dad's still insisting that I'm the one being dramatic. My husband is completely on my side, but thinks forbidding my father from cooking for our children might have been a little bit too much. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all, because there is no way I'm eating 3-year-old meat. That should have been rotated around, and he should have used that way sooner than March 2021. And by the way, that's just when it expired. Sometimes this meat is good for like a year and a half, so I'm willing to guess that he probably bought this back in like, I don't know, 2018 or 2019 or something like that. And that would be especially true if it's like packaged and it's meant to be stored for a long time. But regardless, if something expired back in 2021, there's no way I'm ever going to eat it, because in my opinion, this is just further proof that your father's being irresponsible with his food. If someone wants to have a large supply of food storage, then go for it, but they need to be responsible with it and actually use the food that they have in their storage. Otherwise, you're going to look up and have 3-year-old meat sitting in your freezer. So no, I don't blame you for denying him ever cooking that food for you, because if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. An entitled jerk demands that I turn down my music on my property, as he claims that it's too loud and that the lyrics are way too vulgar. So I decide to maliciously complain comply by loudly playing opera music from my 12-inch subs on my car in a way that he could never possibly ignore. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I need to give some information. This happened over 12 years ago at my family's house when I was about 22 years old, and I was passionate about my old SUV that I had painted a metallic red with neon lights underneath and had on 22-inch chrome rims and a decent stereo that you could hear about a quarter-mile away. Our neighbors themselves paid absolutely no attention to anything going on outside their doors, and although we are all friendly and any one of us would drop what we are doing to help one of us in need, in 20 years, you can count the conversations that we've exchanged without taking off your shoes, and we all have our own little hobbies. One of them has goats and chickens, another keeps bees, and one across the road repairs lawnmowers, ATVs, and such, and I never do anything that would normally invite onlookers. But one Saturday afternoon, I was changing the oil and spark plugs on my SUV with a beer and some Cheetos in our driveway, and I had a tiny speaker hooked up to my phone playing some old school rap. And on that day, the lady on our left was having some landscaping and yard work done. I was rolling around under my truck on my back, literally elbows deep in the greasy mess and a little irritated because I had just dropped my 10mm socket, but as I did that, I see some steel-toed leather boots walking the 30 feet up to my driveway and up to my Suburban. I roll out from underneath my car and I gave the guy a very confused look. Well, he straight up just told me to turn the music down because he didn't like the vulgar and violent lyrics. And seriously, it's like gospel music must be the only music he ever listens to. And I know for a fact that this little speaker couldn't possibly be legible to anybody 50 feet away, especially if he's concentrating on cutting shrubs and planting flowers and such. Despite my passions, I'm not a complete jerk. So I say to him, okay, no problem. I'll take care of it as soon as I get my hands wiped off. Have a good day. He then stomped away in a fit, muttering some awful things underneath his breath. And when I heard some of the vulgar things that he was saying, that really sickened me. But it was right then that I had a brilliant idea. I immediately turned off my tiny speaker playing Underground Kings and pulled out the battery jump box, put it on my truck's battery, and went inside my house and got my opera CD collection and rolled down all the windows to unveil my 4 12-inch subs and 8 6-inch mids, and I put on the Valkyrie by Wagner and unleashed the stereo's 2,000 watts and went back under the SUV to finish draining the oil. Now, the look on this guy's face was priceless. I guess he didn't think that someone like me had a taste for opera, which is not usually something I bring out on a hot day of rolling around in the oil, but I do enjoy it when I'm relaxing in my den sometimes. After about 20 minutes, I was done with the tune-up, and I started up the car and decided to drive it up and down the road just to make sure that the oil level was settled. I parked back in my driveway, shutting everything down, and as I put everything away, I see the landscaping truck leaving without taking the time to close his tailgate, and by some kind of sweet karma, some of his tools rolled out as he slammed the gas pedal, and it was right then that I had to turn around so he wouldn't see my ear-to-ear grin. 2 days later, while taking out the trash, I waved to the neighbor lady who was having tea on the porch, and I explained what happened, and I wanted to apologize if I caused her any problems with her landscaper. Well, that sweet old lady just laughed and said, oh, that guy's a jerk anyways, and he even tells her grandson to lower the volume on his video games if he's ever over at her house while he's working. But even though I still see the same landscaping truck on occasion, I'm sure that this guy won't be forgetting me anytime soon. Yeah, I'm of the opinion that if someone's not bothering you and they're doing something that's literally away from you and they might be making like a little bit of noise, then you have no right to go over there and be like, you need to turn all your music down. You need to be quiet. You're disturbing me. Like, no, that is not how this works, especially if they're on their own property and it's like a normal time of day. Now, if this guy was playing music that was really loud in the middle of the night and you were somehow like a neighbor or something along those lines, then sure, it's time for them to be quiet. But if they're out on their own property, literally fixing up their car and trying to get something done, and you walk over there all disgruntled and say, you've got to turn it all down, then in my opinion, you are in the wrong and you absolutely deserve to be humiliated and put in your place. An entitled Karen freaks out on me after she tried to buy alcohol for her son who very clearly could have been underage. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of information about me, I don't really drink or do any kind of substances, and I've been homeless for a while, but I managed to find myself a job. And this situation literally just happened to me. I was sitting at the counter, as my job involves renting boats and cottages, but we do have a storefront that sells beer, fishing supplies, boat rentals, and food. A person came up to the counter with a 24-pack of beer and tried to buy it. The guy looked young, maybe under 19 years old. And for reference, I'm Canadian, so you need to be 19 to purchase alcohol. This guy didn't have any identification, so I told him that I couldn't sell him booze. Well, he clapped back at me, saying it's okay okay because he's 20. But I told him I can't sell you anything without an ID. No ID, no sale. So at this point, he really started to talk down to me, saying he's old enough and told me not to make him go get it. He then pointed to his car and said that he's busy. So I said to them, okay, so you're driving without a license? And when I said that, this guy got flustered and finally left the store. About 30 minutes later, this older woman walks in and I see the kid from before outside. She grabbed a 24-pack and came to the counter. She pointed outside and asked if I was the person who wouldn't sell her kid any beer. And I just said, yes, if you don't have an ID, I'm not going to sell it. She huffed at me and said, whatever, and then tried to make her purchase. So I asked her, does your kid have his ID on him now? But she said no, that she's buying the beer. But I said, unfortunately, I can't sell it to you without him having an ID. This lady then started to scream at me, saying that she's in her 40s and that she has her license. But that's when I explained that I couldn't sell her alcohol, knowing that she's giving it to a potentially minor or someone without an ID. She then screamed and called me a moron. She flipped me off and said that she was going to call corporate to complain about me. I told her, ma'am, it's a small business, but I'll happily give you the owner's number. Well, she eventually left and I called the owner to explain everything. And trust me, she was not even mad. Instead, she laughed and said that I handled it perfectly. Yeah, I think you handled that perfectly as well. And honestly, I think the fact that this Karen seriously thought she could buy alcohol for this kid without ever trying to account for his age or even him having an identification in the first place, like that is crazy to me and that is not the mark of a good mother. So good for you for standing your ground and not letting her break the law and probably get you in trouble. Because if something went wrong, I guarantee you this absolutely would have fallen on your shoulders. Would I be the jerk if I said no to my parents moving into mine and my husband's house that we are literally renovating as we speak? Here's what happened. My husband and I recently got married in January of 2024 and have been waiting to move into our own 3-bedroom apartment that is still going through renovations that's taking longer than expected. My husband moved into my dad's 1-bedroom apartment after we got married, as no one else has been living there except for me. I've also been paying rent ever since I started working. For context, my dad has been living in a rented, semi-detached home with his stepmom and her mother ever since he remarried 7 years ago. They also have a male tenant living with them in the house who is rarely home due to his working hours. Also, my dad's mother-in-law owns a studio apartment that is currently vacant. A few months ago, my dad came to us and told us that the owners of their rental house wants it back to undergo renovations and then renting it at a higher value, which my parents clearly cannot afford. While my husband and I were house hunting, we brought it up to my dad and offered to let them stay with us and at no cost. Well, he declined, as he said my stepmom would not feel comfortable having to live with another guy at close proximity, namely my husband. Also, it's too far from her siblings and the city center, and she is used to living in landed properties, so an apartment would be too small for her. We also offered to move out of his house so that they can move in, but he declined, as there is only 1 bedroom and her mom insists on following my stepmom wherever she goes, even though she has her own house. Well, yesterday, my dad sat me and my husband down to let us know that he will be moving in with us to our new home, as time is running out for them, and that they'll move out after 4 months once the renovations are done. However, my dad told us that it will be him, my stepmom, her mother, and their tenant, and they will all be paying us rent. But I was really confused, as this is a 3-bedroom apartment, so where would we have any kind of space for the extra tenant? He then continued, saying that me and my husband can continue living in his 1-bedroom apartment while they live in our new home for the next 4 months. Well, that got me angry, because they've decided to not live with us, but somehow made the decision about where we will be living. I had to maintain my composure, as I was with my family and I didn't want to ruin the day. Once we were home, my husband and I sat down and talked about what we were going to let my dad know if he ever were to bring the conversation up again, and have decided that they can live with us and still not kick us out, or they can live elsewhere since they actually have choices instead of choosing the easy way out. So would I be the jerk if I denied him living in our new apartment? What should I do? Okay, this is ridiculous, because if I was in the original poster's shoes, these people would not be moving into my new apartment. That's not happening. That is an insane demand that I would literally ignore right there on the spot. He can find another apartment somewhere else, and he has no right to try and kick you out of your 3-bedroom apartment that you're literally getting fixed up so that you can live there. Like, that just makes me really mad even just thinking about it. So no, you would not be the jerk for telling them to kick rocks, because these people are being very selfish, and it quite literally is only going to be at your expense. My crazy girlfriend demands that I give her $100,000 or else she will leave me and never love me again. And after having an on and off again relationship with her, as well as finally coming to my senses that this might not be good for me, I am now highly considering dumping her, as I'm starting to realize that my girlfriend might actually be scamming me. Here's what happened. So I met my girlfriend earlier this year at an Asian massage parlor, and we've been together for 8 months. She is Chinese and I'm Chinese American, and we communicate in Chinese. In the beginning, I visited her, and eventually we moved to texting on WeChat. We would talk about dreams and daily life, and I would also help her with English every single day, and I actually really loved her. About 3 months in, she started asking me to drive her around to see store locations for future businesses. So for about 1 to 2 months, I would research locations, create a list, and I would drive her to go see them. At one point, I asked her if the location we saw was great, but she thinks it's too close to another nearby massage parlor. I mentioned that it's not, since it's like 3 blocks away, which is much further than a previous location we saw, which has another parlor literally across the street. In a raised voice, she said to me, "How many times do I have to tell you not to ask this type of question? You never learn." So I got annoyed and I raised my voice and said, "Well, I need to know your thought process since it seems to be contradictory to what you said. You need to make up your mind." Well, we did not talk on the car ride home, and from this point forward, it was basically the end of our sweet honeymoon phase. And this would be our first breakup. Each time I would have to talk to her and comfort her to be accepted again. In the next few months, we were still together, and we would take turns staying over at each other's places. And every now and then, we would go out and play badminton. One time, when I went to get the racks from my car trunk, she put her over-the-shoulder backpack on me. I took it off and I asked her to hold it for me while I get the rackets. Well, she wasn't happy, and I can see this wasn't going to end well, but I thought we already drove all the way over to the badminton courts, and we should just continue as this might cheer her up. So I just paid for the badminton session. When we started to play, she took her racket out of the bag and dropped the racket bag and remaining rackets on the ground from a standing position, and I was a bit shocked. I didn't serve, and I asked her why she did that, and then my girlfriend just left the building. Now, luckily, I was able to request a refund, and then I quickly went after her. And this incident would be our second breakup. Now, around this time, she deleted me from her WeChat, which meant that all the early romantic conversations we had were gone from her end. I still have our conversation history on my WeChat, but she was not able to recover them on her end. And this is really hard, since our memory of each other is lost now. Now, it's worth mentioning, since my English and Chinese is good, I often help out her and her relatives with any English-related task on a regular basis. One time, I helped her cousin sign up for a Gmail account, and it was then that I learned her cousin was older than me. Now, I found this strange, since her cousin always referred to my girlfriend as an older sister in Chinese. The whole time, I thought my girlfriend was younger than me, but I had a suspicion that she might be older. But this wasn't an issue because I really loved her. One time when we went into my car, she mentioned that I'm just like a little brother, so I took the chance to ask about her age, and I learned that she was older than me by 3 years. We then got food and talked about this, and I later found out she has been in a previous marriage in China and has a daughter. I also learned going from China to California was not cheap, and she owes her aunt over $50,000 for the arrangement. Last month in September, we were casually talking on WeChat, and I was looking at my Apple Watch and noticed I was spending quite a bit on food, and I needed to be more aware of my spending when it comes to myself. Now, this was all in Chinese, and my Chinese is good, but it's not perfect. Well, she mistook this as me saying I've been spending too much on our dates, and later sent a message to me saying that we should break up. I didn't know what to say, and she later just ignored me. For about a week, I felt depressed, and I just couldn't function. So I drove to her house and I talked to her. I said, "Without you, I'm not myself, and I'm not complete." I asked her what she wanted, and she told me she wants $50,000 by the end of September so that she can pay off her debt to her aunt. And you know what? I agreed. And then she says she wants me to buy her a $50,000 car, which is way more expensive than my own car. She says that she wants this so she can leave this industry and then she can pursue her passion of being a beautician. And honestly, not being able to think, I just completely agreed with her. It should be noted, agreeing on her request and saying it can be done means that I have to get it done. Otherwise, I don't mean what I say and then she'll just leave me again. With this though, she wanted to see results. So I gave her aunt $5,000 in cash. This was almost my full bank account, and the following weeks were very difficult for me financially. On the last day of September, I saw flowers at Costco and I thought of her, so I decided to bring them over. I've been busy throughout the week, and I didn't think too much about getting the $45,000 personal loan. I applied to a few locations, but rates were high, and they weren't from well-known banks, so I didn't think much about it. When I got to her house, she was happy to see me and asked if I took care of the loan. I said I did not have time and I was busy all week. Well, she immediately became became bitter. And then she went to her room and just completely ignored me. I told her I would be able to do it, but she just said that I'm not able to keep my word. The next day, she was a bit better, and we went to scout a location to open up a beautician shop. When we got to my place, I tried to get close to her, if you know what I mean, but she said not until she gets the money. With us breaking up so often, I wasn't sure if I wanted to take the loan out. So I asked if she could text me that she would at least pay the monthly fees. But then she got upset and called an Uber home. Now, I tried to text her, but I got no reply. So, feeling really depressed, I started applying for personal loans, and I found out that Discover Bank was able to help, and I started the application process. Now, it's also important to know that her cousin and aunt often ask me for help. And fast forward to this week, and recently, her cousin asked me to search for Toyota cars for her. So, I took my girlfriend's cousin around to see cars yesterday. We didn't really see what we liked, and we returned to my girlfriend's house. Now, my girlfriend is still ignoring me, but when I tried to talk to her, she mentioned that unless I have the money, she will not talk to me. She also mentioned today was a waste of time since we checked cars and had no result. I talked to my girlfriend, promising that I'll get the money and I will start paying it off first until she has her license. And then I will buy her a car and she will start paying off the personal loans. We all then had dinner, and I found out her cousin and her aunt don't have the $25,000 cash to buy a Toyota that they want. Having come from China recently, getting a loan may be a difficult process for them. So my girlfriend proposed for me to take out a $25,000 personal loan under my name so that I could give it to her cousin to buy a car, and that this $25,000 will then be deducted from the $50,000 that she owes her aunt. And again, I disagreed with her. I went through the process with Discover Loans, and they mentioned needing 48 to 72 hours to process everything. My girlfriend was still bitter, but things were starting to look better. Now, at night, I needed her room to finish some work, and I finally wrapped up at around midnight, and when she came into the room, she asked when I'm going home. I said I was wrapping up, and then I asked her if I can take the couch in the living room, but she said that her aunt was going to sleep there since their house was full that day. But her aunt ended up sharing a bed with someone else, and instead let me take the couch. Now, this all happened yesterday night, so that night, as I was wrapping up work, I started to think, even as I try to make my girlfriend happy and do what she wants, she is still never happy. The romantic days that we shared months ago disappeared, and it has never been the same ever since. And I realize I really don't need to be treated like this. The person I really loved is no longer there. It is sad, but looking at it from a bigger picture, I'm only hurting myself, and I don't need to be treated like this. I'm scared of loneliness, being rejected, and disappointing people. And I really like the feeling of somebody loving me, and that may be the reason why I kept going back. So yesterday night at 1 in the morning, I packed my backpack and I drove home. And my roommate was awake, so I just talked about my ideas until about 3 in the morning. Now, I'm writing this since it does make sense for me to leave. It makes sense to me logically, financially, and mentally. I guess I'm just longing for a memory that I'm hoping will come back, but it won't. This is my first anonymous post, and I'm writing this to remember what I've been going through and the reasons why I want to leave. What should I do? Okay, I am blown away that you're even with this lady in the first place. Okay, let me get this straight. She's treated you like garbage practically from the beginning of your relationship, and now she's literally asking for tens of thousands of dollars from you. And she's only gonna be happy unless you give her that money. Like, how could anybody in their rational mind be like, oh, but I want to feel loved and accepted. I want to feel loved by somebody. But like, my man, this lady does not like you. She likes your bank account, and she's gonna love putting you in debt, especially if it helps out her and her family. Like, these people are playing you for a fool. They are exploiting you and they are scamming you. They don't care about you in the slightest. And your girlfriend is not your girlfriend. She doesn't care about you either. I think I can confidently say that based on what you've described. Like, what girlfriend in their right mind would be like, oh, the only way you can make me happy is by giving me $50,000. Otherwise, I'm never talking to you. Like, she sounds more like a loan shark than she does like someone that cares about you. So brother, the writing is on the wall, and you can seriously do so much better than this crazy lady. She only cares about money, and more importantly, she only cares about your money. Because I guarantee you, if you fund anything in their lives, the second they get that money, they're gonna hightail it and you will never see them again. And that is not something that you ever want to deal with. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for refusing to help my parents out financially, all because they only help my siblings and have quite literally turned me away anytime I needed any kind of help? Here's what happened. So I'm a 30-year-old male and I'm the oldest of 5, and my siblings range from the ages of 28 all the way down to 23. Our parents were always generous with giving money when asked for it, except when it came to me. I was told I should learn to work hard. I was told I didn't need the video game or the toy that I might be asking for. I was told that earning money was the only way I'd ever have money, and I had not earned money from them. But my siblings could get whatever they wanted. When I first graduated college, I ended up struggling financially because where I went to work, the cost of apartments were so high. I asked my parents if they could help me out, and they just said no to me. I ended up in a shelter for a few weeks and then rented a dump of an apartment with a friend who found himself in literally the same situation. They not only helped my siblings through college, which they didn't do for me by the way, but they gave each of them lump sums after they graduated to help them get started in life. They also helped them out when asked over the years, especially during the COVID years. They didn't offer any money to help towards mine and my wife's wedding. And you know what? We didn't even ask. But it stood out more when my sister got engaged and our parents had mentioned money for all the weddings. And again, it was all except for mine. Only now this has finally all caught up with them and they are in a very tight spot with money. And now they're asking me for money too. They told me they need my wife and I's help and we should do it because of how great they have been and that they have never said no to any of us. But I told them they have never helped me with anything, that they preferred to see me homeless rather than help me out. They argued back that it never happened and I could have asked if things were that bad. But I then showed them screenshots of text messages where I had brought the topic up after asking them verbally. Well, my parents dismissed it and then told me that they're still my parents and I'm the most settled and I could afford to help them out. But you know what? I admitted to them that I could, but I didn't feel that they earned it. Well, my parents called me spiteful and said I should help my parents rather than see them lose everything. I told them to ask the kids who they helped. And you know what? Even my siblings were pissed off that I said no. They told me mom and dad don't deserve my pettiness. So am I the jerk for turning them away and refusing to give them any money? What should I do? You are not the jerk and you are definitely giving them a taste of their own medicine. These people literally allowed you to become homeless. They showed all this love and kindness towards your siblings, but when it came to your desperate needs, they literally turned a blind eye and said, "I'm sorry, but you haven't earned it yet." Which, by the way, that was a fantastic line to deliver towards them, especially because you know they absolutely remember saying that to you. So no, I don't think you're the jerk at all. These people have reaped what they sowed. Karma is literally coming back to bite them in the rear end, and in my opinion, based on what you described, these people absolutely deserve it. Am I the jerk for bringing an uninvited guest to a destination wedding after the maid of honor found out that my boyfriend was staying in my hotel room? Because right now, she is making a huge deal out of this, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 26-year-old female, and I was invited to a wedding within my state, but far enough away that if I attended, I would have to sleep over at a hotel for at least 2 nights if I arrived the night before. And that's because this was pretty much planned to be an all-day affair. Now, I was very flattered to be invited, as I didn't think I was that close to the couple. It was a fairly small wedding, maybe 60 guests including the bridal party, and obviously as it was very small, and I was possibly a second round invite, I didn't get a +1, which honestly was fine with me. So I ultimately decided to go. When I went to book the hotel room for my stay, I found that they only had large rooms available, as it is a popular wedding destination and it is a bit fancy. So I thought to myself, why not invite my boyfriend? That way we could trade off on the long drive there and back, and we can share the big room that I would have to pay for anyways. The idea was that night we arrived, we could get dinner together somewhere new, and then have a nice breakfast before heading back home. While I was at the wedding events, he could just hang out in the hotel room or by the pool or whatever. Now the wedding went great, and then after it wrapped up, the maid of honor was chatting with me as I walked back to my room, and I knocked on the door instead of digging through my bag for the key card. When my boyfriend opened the door for me, the maid of honor just greeted him and walked off, and I didn't think it was a big deal or anything like that. A few days later, the maid of honor reached out and said it was awkward and uncomfortable for me to have invited him to the hotel, and that it made everybody feel bad and weird that he was there waiting for the wedding to end when they had not invited him. And when we were told that, we were both very surprised. No one even knew he was there because it didn't come up at all during the wedding. It definitely wasn't a big secret, and honestly, we wouldn't have thought it was a big deal if people did know. And he had only met the bride and groom like 6 times and had 0 issues with not being invited to such an intimate wedding. Also, if it matters, I was far from the only guest who didn't get a +1, and I never asked to be given a +1 for him. I have no clue if the maid of honor told the bride, and if the bride also thinks this was inappropriate. If she hasn't, I really don't want to contact her, especially during her honeymoon to start drama. I didn't check or anything beforehand, which which is my bad, I guess. So honestly, am I the jerk for inviting him to be at the hotel? Was this really that big of a deal? What should I do? No, you are not the jerk, and that maid of honor is an idiot. Seriously, let's think about this for a second. He didn't even go to the wedding. He literally stayed at the hotel and just waited for the wedding to be done. So for this maid of honor to idiotically be like, wow, you made this really weird for all of us. It's like, what are you talking about? He wasn't at the wedding. And this isn't even a hotel that they paid for. The original poster paid for this out of their own pocket. It would be different if the bride and groom paid for these hotel rooms and then the original poster snuck their boyfriend in and they stayed with them during the duration. But that is not what happened. This came out of their own pocket and they're the ones that paid for this. And if they wanted to bring their whole family with them and they all stuffed in that hotel room, then that is literally nobody's business except for the original poster. Like, the maid of honor didn't even know about this. So for her to be like, wow, you made everybody uncomfortable because of that. She's literally only talking about herself because before this moment, she didn't even know that this guy was there. Like, seriously, what an annoying, idiotic thing to say. So no, you're definitely not the jerk for having your boyfriend at your hotel room. That maid of honor is a busybody and clearly is looking for reasons to complain. And that is definitely not your problem in the slightest. An entitled Karen demands that I get out of the way so that she and her stupid husband can move along and get past us faster than everybody else. And despite the fact that all of our cars are stuck in a deadlock and that none of us are moving any faster than the other, this Karen still goes into a rage, even going as far as knocking on my car window, demanding that I move faster or else she is gonna lose it. And I'm honestly still blown away by this entitled Karen's behavior, and I seriously hope I never have to deal with her ever again. Here's what happened. Okay, so I had a friend in from out of town, and we decided to go to a major attraction in my city that I had not been to yet. And needless to say, with it being one of the last sunny Saturdays of summer, the parking lot was absolutely packed. We find ourselves waiting behind a line of about 5 cars, and there are a few other cars behind us in the parking lot, and it's also a one-way road. We're sitting there for about 2 minutes when suddenly the parked car next to us starts honking. Now, let me just add in really quick that if someone is clearly trying to get out of a parking spot, like inching forward, turning their lights on or anything like that, then I will always make room if I can. Now, I didn't see anything like that when we got in line, and I didn't even notice anyone was in the car at all. We look over and we see Karen and Ken in the front seat, but seem to be making arm movements as if to say, oh, I'm sorry, we hit the horn. And we look at them and they're just smiling and waving. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, I'm not sure what's going on, so we just go ahead and ignore them. Well, suddenly, this Karen gets out of the car and storms up in a fury and starts to knock on my driver's side window really hard. And I can see that she's got the crazy eyes. I roll it down just enough to talk because I was honestly bewildered. This woman says to me, can you guys just move? We're trying to get out of here. Now, thinking that I might be talking to an alien who doesn't fully grasp the concept of time and space, I say something to the effect of, we can't get through these cars any easier than you can. I'm sorry, but I can't do anything. She then goes on to say, be serious. You can squeeze through on the left and get past all these cars. Figure it out. You can do it. We believe in you. I said to her, I'll do what I can. And then I rolled my window back up. Now, since I'm a people pleaser, I actually did the whole crane my neck thing for a few seconds. And I saw that the cars were clearing out in front of us. And this Karen was out of my face for no more than 10 seconds before I saw her huffing up to my car again like some kind of angry Donald Duck. And it was honestly such perfect timing. I was just able to move forward literally as her fist was raised to my window again. And the look on her face as we drove past was absolutely hilarious. I then see Karen in my rearview mirror literally scrambling back to her car, and she and Ken peel out, acting like they were fast when the car behind me was letting them in anyways. They then come to a screeching halt behind me, and the entire time they're inching off to the left, as if they're going to magically squeeze their SUV through the 2 feet of available space in the left. And for all this drama, keep in mind that this all happened within about 4 minutes. When it was all said and done, we found parking within 5 minutes of getting there, and thankfully we didn't see this entitled Karen again, and we were so glad because we definitely did not want to deal with her for a second time. Yeah, I will never understand people acting like that, especially when you're just trying to find parking. Like, for starters, it's a major attraction in the city, and it's like the last day of summer practically. So for these people to be throwing a fit like that and acting as if, oh my god, you gotta get out of the way, we're waiting forever, like that kind of attitude would never make me move any faster. If anything, it would probably make me slow down just a little bit more. And you know what? Anyone who bangs on my car window is absolutely not getting what they want from me. That's inappropriate, that's rude, and seriously, you're just not gonna do that. So good for you for the way that you handled this, as well as the fact that you left this lady scrambling at the last second. Because at the end of the day, this wasn't some emergency situation, but But instead, at the end of the day, this was just a bunch of entitled people acting like spoiled brats. My toxic entitled teacher treats all of his students like garbage, all because we don't know the material that he's trying to teach us. And after watching students drop out of his class and their major because of him, me and my remaining classmates decided to get some revenge, resulting in this guy getting reprimanded by the administration and eventually getting fired. Here's what happened. So this happened in the early 2000s. In my junior year of high school, the district had just built the third high school in our city, and most of the teachers were new, and the band director was one of those new hires. He was qualified for the job, but had zero people skills and was extremely abrasive towards students. He had previously taught university and could not wrap his head around the fact that high school students are not college-level music majors who live in practice rooms and write symphonies in their sleep. His normal behavior consisted of berating students for not knowing university-level curriculum, talking down to everyone about how he cannot understand why they are so incompetent, and stopping rehearsals to go on long tangents about things that had nothing to do with music. Every day, at least 2 to 3 students would leave class in tears. We complained to the higher-ups, and they repeatedly brushed us off. He made students hate attending music classes, and many dropped band and orchestra as a result. One of the classes he taught was supposed to be Intro to Music Theory. For those who don't know music, this would be a class that should be typically teaching things like different types of chords, the definition of music symbols, the logic behind key changes, and so on. At the first class of the year, there were about 25 kids enrolled. Most of these were music and drama kids who wanted to be teachers or performers in the arts one day. On the first day, he handed us a quiz because he wanted to see how much we knew, and I think there were maybe 3 to 5 kids who were able to attempt a single question on the quiz, but no one got a single answer right. That's how advanced it was. Imagine signing up for what you thought is a basic pre-algebra class and instead walking into advanced calculus. This teacher then spent the entire class period berating us for not being prepared when no one could even attempt his quiz. But we told him this is an intro class. None of us have learned anything like this before. And his response was to say, "Really? I thought this was an advanced class." The next class period, there were maybe 15 kids in total that were enrolled, and he did the same thing. He asked us to perform something that we cannot even understand, and then berated us for not being prepared. At every class, he would just say, "I thought you were all musicians. This is supposed to be an advanced class." By the end of the second week, there were only 6 students left enrolled in this class, including myself. He softened up slightly on those who stayed, and seemed to think that we were his prize students and that this was his class of elites. But in truth, we all thought he was insane and cruel. But the 6 of us had sufficient music backgrounds, and we had enough experience to understand a fraction of his lessons. And without the bell curve, we all would have failed his class. A few months go by, and we're at the end of the first semester. By now, every student connected to music in the school hated this guy, and repeated complaints had done nothing to fix the problem. The admins filed away every complaint, but never did anything more than remind him that he's supposed to be more kind to students. Well, he changes nothing, and still berates students and makes them cry. So when it comes to the final exam for his theory class, he decides that he wants to give it to us early, so that the day the final is supposed to be scheduled, we can all have a class party instead. Now, of the 6 of us left, 4 of us have the same period after his class together as well, and that class is AP English, and we were all prepping for the AP test. But we had no problem with a class party in music right before the AP prep exam, so we didn't complain. The day comes for our music final exam, and after we finish the test, he tells us that for our class party, he wants to take us all to breakfast at a new IHOP that opened 20 minutes away. We then try to tell him all the issues with his plans. We are not allowed to leave campus without permission slips, and this was a closed campus policy due to an incident where a student who left campus got hit by a car. Also, we will not get back in time for second period, which by the way was a final exam, and he doesn't have permission to remove us from the campus. What if there's an emergency and we are unaccounted for because we aren't even at the school? His solution was to tell us that after the start of class on our final class day, he would be going to IHOP, and if we wanted to join him, then that's our choice. But if we didn't, we would have to stay in the classroom and not bring attention to the fact that there was no class and no teacher. Well, without talking about it to each other, the 6 of us saw this as an opportunity to finally get the administration's attention to the complete disregard that this teacher had for rules and policies. We made sure to inform our English teacher that we might be late to class on the day of the final due to a class field trip for music theory. She was irritated and reminded us that this final was very important and that she would not give us extra time if we came in late. But we told her that we understood, and we gave her details about where we would be and what we would be doing and who we would be with. And and she just said that she still expected us to be in her class. On the day of the final, we all went to IHOP, and it took forever for us to get there because of construction, and it took forever to get our food because the restaurant was newly opened and had a large number of customers. We eventually got back to the school halfway through our second period class, and when we got back, the admins were waiting for us as well as security. My English teacher had called the front office to complain that 4 of her best students were missing and that she was fairly certain that we weren't even on campus. Well, the admins had checked attendance and they had seen that we were all marked present this morning and that they had searched the entire school looking for our class. Eventually, the 4 of us walked into our English final to a livid teacher. Now, we knew that she was pissed at us, but she couldn't punish us beyond saying that we had the same remaining time as the rest of the class. Now, none of us did as well in the final as we could have if we had the full 87 minutes, but we were doing well enough in the class already that the lesser marks didn't affect our overall grade too much. The band teacher also had a private reprimand that was so loud the entire school could hear it. He was confused as to why the administration was so upset that he took minor children off campus without permission or notice, and without proper school transportation or even for a good reason. He then stayed with his usual attitude, but this time towards the administration. He said, "Why are you guys so incompetent about this? They're old enough to drive, what's the problem?" The English teacher, who I actually adore and was one of the best teachers I've ever had, absolutely went mama bear on the administration about how they could continue to employ someone who disrespects the other teachers so much as to deprive his students of their final exams and put them in potentially dangerous circumstances. He told us to drive ourselves to the restaurant, and any accidents or medical issues would have been the school's fault. Well, this guy was fired later that day, and many of the students had a gleeful but confused reaction since the 6 of us weren't talking to anyone about it. All most people knew was that this tyrant of a teacher was finally gone. We didn't spread the story very much of how it happened because we still fear being reprimanded for our involvement since he technically gave us a choice to go with him or stay. But I always smiled when people gossiped about what the final straw was that got him fired, because I'm so glad that I played a role in him getting exactly what he deserved. Wow, that guy is a complete moron. He not only came into this high school and was like, okay, you're gonna learn music the hard way, and not only did very little to teach you guys any of the material, but also treated you like garbage because you didn't know the material. Why would you too, by the way? It honestly makes no sense to me when teachers, especially in high school, treat their students like garbage and act as if, oh yeah, you should know all of this already. If that was the case, then why would I ever be taking your class? Wouldn't I try to test out of it or go to something more advanced or prove that I know the information more? This guy sounds like an absolutely obnoxious jerk. So truly, I love the fact that you guys grouped together and you silently agree that this guy absolutely needs to go down, because the way he treated you and your other classmates was completely unacceptable, and in my opinion, he absolutely deserved to get fired. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for not ordering any food? Also that I could avoid 2 friends in my friend group who always try to mooch off of everybody else. Here's what happened. I'm a 27-year-old male, and I've been a part of a small friend group of around 8 people ever since college. For some background information, 2 people from the group, who we will call Sarah and Greg, are absolute leeches. For example, if you're going out for lunch, expect them to order the most expensive item on the menu, then feed you some kind of sob story about their finances, and then dump half the bill on you. Last weekend, another friend who we will call Dan, who's also one of the people from the group, told me about a casual dinner that they had. I told him how if Susan or Greg were there, I would not be able to come along. He tells me that they would be there, but I should just put my opinions aside and come just once. And honestly, this is kind of where I might be the jerk. I agreed with him and I told him that I would be there, and I show up and we all get to talking. Everyone began putting in their orders, and most of them spent about $40 in total, and there were only about 6 people there. When it gets to Susan and Greg, they both order expensive dishes at around $200. When it was my turn to order, everyone looked at me, but I just picked up the menu and pointed at a $4 Miller Lite, and then I sent the waiter away. Dan asked why I had not ordered anything, and all I said was that I had lost my appetite. Then the other 2 friends got up as well to cancel their orders and just have some drinks. After the main courses came out, I saw Susan and Greg picking at their food. The waiter then brings over the check. Greg asked to be expected, then grabs the waiter and asked him to split the check 6 ways. Well, when he tried that, I stand up and I correct him, saying the check was to be split 3 ways. Greg looks at me confused and asks me why, since we always split split the bill? Well, I reminded him that 3 of us had not eaten any food, so we would just be paying for our drinks. So basically, at the end of the night, Dan, who probably ate around $50 worth of food, was stuck with a $146 check at the end of the night. And I swear I saw his jaw drop when he picked up that receipt. I then slid a $10 bill towards the check, I said goodbye to everybody, and then I walked out. The next morning, I found my phone full of text messages from Greg and Susan telling me that I was a jerk for not ordering any food and forcing them to pay more than they had accounted for. And I honestly laughed, because the steaks alone were more than what they had paid, but to each their own, right? I also got a lot of messages from Dan saying that I could have just not come along instead of pulling that stunt and getting him stuck with an outrageous bill. Now, just to clarify a few things, I will say that 90% of restaurants where I live don't do separate checks, and they might separate the bill for you if you're lucky. Also, Dan could have easily asked Greg and Sarah to transfer him the money if he really wanted to, but he's always been about helping them through their financial hardship, even though they're just using him and keep dragging me into it. In retrospect, I will admit that what I did was immature, but I'm tired of being forced to play along. It is his money, and if he wants to spend it on them, that's fine, but I am not also going to be paying for them. And I will say that Dan is a really good friend of mine, even though he's kind of blind to what's going on. I was just trying to get him to see what kind of people he was helping. And sure, maybe it was just a bit petty, but am I the jerk for what I did to my friend? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, for starters, I don't think you're the jerk at all, because truly, Susan and Greg really are leeches. Who in their right mind would be like, okay, time to order like the most expensive item on the menu, and then expect everybody to split it up 6 ways? Like, why on earth should I have to pay for your garbage? That is ridiculous, and that really is not fair for me. And the fact that any of these people are trying to blame you for this all going down in the way that it did, in my opinion, shows not only how delusional Dan is, but also how selfish and obnoxious Susan and Greg are, forever assuming that you should pay for everything in their life. Am I the jerk for telling my neighbor to grow up and get a life after he got so mad that I was painting my house a color that he didn't like? Because right now he is talking some mad garbage about me behind my back, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I bought a house in a community without a homeowners association, and I did that because I wanted my home to be my home, and that includes making it look the way that I want. I also chose a neighborhood that was already fun, full of colorful houses, instead of just plain earth tones. I finally got to the point where I could repaint my house, and I picked a soft peachy color with sage blue and soft and dark pink accents. It was fun and colorful without being way too out there. I think if you Google colors blue sage peach, you might see a similar palette. Well, my neighbor, who we will call Paul, absolutely hates it and has been complaining ever since we started the project. He also made his opinions known that he hates our front lawn. And for reference, our lawn has some wildflowers and sunflowers, as well as a fun garden flag and a little free library. But each and every time, I've told him that I don't care. Truly, I literally don't. And I've suggested a few times that maybe he would be happier in an HOA community that has control over everything and forces people into having earth-toned houses. Well, Paul got angry when I suggested that and said that he's lived in his home for 15 years and shouldn't have to move. So I told him, okay, well, you'll just have to learn to live with a little bit of color. So last weekend, I was putting in pavers that my niece and I had painted together. They're all things like ladybugs, turtles, birds, and anything with fun colors. I adore them, and my niece is so excited that she gets to be a part of my home. Well, Paul came over to complain yet again, saying that it was an eyesore, and my niece was here, so I just told him it's time for you to grow up and get over what I'm doing with my house. When I said that, he got even pissier and told me that I have no right to talk to him this way. Do you know who you're talking to right now? I then just said straight up, get out of my life. If he really has so much free time to complain about a colorful house, then maybe he should get a hobby. He then stormed off and called me a nasty piece of work, and my niece was cracking up on the side. For the record, no one in my family is uptight, and we really just don't care about cursing. I know some people still clutch their pearls over it around kids, but I'm sure that she says way worse. Anyways, one of the other neighbors came to tell me that he's been flapping his yap about how disrespectful I am for talking to him like that. She told me that she knows he's a pain, but that he has been in the neighborhood forever, and it is worth being nice to him. But honestly, I don't know. Is telling him to get a life that big of a deal? Am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, I don't think you did anything wrong. This guy is literally up in your business trying to tell you how to live in your house. Because you said it yourself, you literally bought a house so you could make it your own. And that includes making it a colorful house in some kind of way. And it doesn't seem like you're doing anything super extreme, like it really is just something to make your house pop and stand out in a way that is not disrespectful of everybody else. So for him to come up to your door and be like, I don't like it, you better stop it. Like, that is really obnoxious and just super annoying. And when it comes to the other lady stepping in and being like, hey, I know he could be uptight, but like, seriously, you need to apologize. He's been in the neighborhood for a while. It's worth being nice to him. Like, I can understand where she's coming from, but also, why in the world is she getting involved in this? Like, that is super obnoxious, and I just can't stand when people do that. She's basically trying to take a secret side to this and try to convince you to come back and, like, I don't know, taper down what you're trying to do. And I just don't think you should have to do that for a second. So no, I don't blame you for telling this guy to get a life and get lost, because the way he was acting towards you and your family, in my opinion, is completely unacceptable. Am I the jerk for ignoring my friend's phone calls after she invited herself, her family, and some of her friends to my home? Also, we could have an impromptu barbecue without my permission. Because right now, I kind of feel awful. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my friend is having a hard time with her spouse and really needs someone to be there for her while they work through their issues. We only just recently reconnected after not speaking for 4 years. But now, every time she calls, she asks me what I'm doing for the day or at that moment. And then she invites herself, her family of 4, and some of her friends over to my house. And it's honestly starting to wear me out. For example, Friday was her spouse's birthday, and on Monday, she told me her plan was to take him to dinner. Well, she then calls me Friday morning asking me what I was doing. I told her I was watching a movie on my couch. And then she says to me, I know it's last minute, but I want to come over and have a barbecue at your house. She said the kids could play together and we could hang out and have some drinks. Now, I hesitated initially, and then I told her that I really didn't have a lot of meat here, nor was my home company ready. She responded that she would go grab some food and do all of the cooking. So I said okay. I cleaned up a bit, and then I received a second call. She excitedly told me that she invited her guy friend, and he may bring a friend for me to talk to, and a female friend of hers was also coming. And I was so shocked that she was trying to throw a party and not just come over and hang out with just her family like she implied during the first call. Her family was already 4 people that I was not expecting, which would have made a total of 8 people, including my own children. And I've only met 2 of the 3 people that she invited. She did not even ask if she could invite anyone else to my home or give out my address. Well, luckily I got a call on the other line, and I told her that I would call her back. 2 hours passed by, and she called me repeatedly. And that's when I decided to text her that something came up and that I cannot host a party for her husband. And after I said that, I didn't even get a response. I waited another 2 hours, and then I called her to see how the barbecue party was going. But she told me that she didn't even have a barbecue party. And I'm just thinking to myself, what is going on? I then asked her why she didn't ask her friends to come to her apartment since she has her own barbecue grill, and why she didn't at least go out to dinner like she planned originally. Well, she literally didn't even answer the first question, but instead she said she didn't want to spend a lot of money going out to eat. So am I the jerk for making up an excuse to end the call and then ignoring all of her repeated calls just to confirm? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all, and honestly, it sounds like your friend was using you instead of trying to, like, I don't know, spend time with you. Like, if anything, she just sounds like a parasite and she was trying to leech off of you having your own place. And it's so funny to me that the second you don't comply with her orders, she suddenly goes silent and can't respond to you about anything. And it's also funny that she's like, oh, I don't have a lot of money to spend. And yet she was willing to buy all this meat and all this stuff and then show up to your house and have a barbecue. It seems really contradictory in my opinion, and I just don't think she's being honest. So no, in my opinion, I don't blame you for not answering the calls, as well as making up an excuse just to get out of the situation. Because this honestly sounds obnoxious, and I would not want to deal with this if I was in your shoes in the slightest. An entitled old couple interrupts our private viewing of a movie that we scheduled, demanding that we move out of the way as we were apparently in their seats. And I've honestly never met anybody more entitled in my life. Here's what happened. So at the small town where my college was located, there was a small independent movie theater. And this movie theater had the option to rent out one of their screens for a private showing, and that's what me and my friends did for a birthday. So we've settled in, and the movie has been going on for about 10 minutes when we hear the doors open at the back of the theater, and in walks this couple that appears to be in their 60s or 70s. They walk up the stairs right over to our row, and without hesitation tell us that we're sitting in their seats. Now, we try to tell them politely that they're just mistaken, but we can't even finish our sentences before the guy explodes and starts screaming at us to get out of their seats and started calling us all sorts of insults. This goes on back and forth for a minute or so until we're finally able to ask him amidst all of his screaming if he noticed the giant sign in front of the door that said private event, which causes him to stand there fuming silently for a moment before literally stomping his foot like a toddler and storming out of the theater with his wife, making sure to slam the door as he walks out. Now, we thought that was the end of it, but about 15 minutes later, the movie stops and the lights come on, and the manager of the theater comes in saying that someone told him that we were doing illegal substances and destroying the seats. But after finally convincing him that that was in fact not what we were doing, he eventually starts the movie again and everything else went smoothly. But I will honestly never forget the way I was treated by this old entitled couple. This story is crazy to me. Imagine grabbing a private showing for a movie that you and your friends set up, only to then have this old grumpy couple come in and be like, "You're sitting in our seats." Not only did they not read the sign on the front of the door, they were also completely unwilling to listen to anything that you guys were trying to tell them. I'm sure this could have been like easily resolved pretty quickly, but these morons came in incredibly aggressive and like ready for a fight for no good reason. And then the icing on the cake when they're finally proven wrong is that they lie and they're like, "Oh yeah, they're doing illegal substances in there and they're destroying the seats, go get them." Like there's no reason to act like that, just get up and go to the other theater and watch the movie you're here to see. So truly, that is some absolutely horrible behavior because the original poster and their friends definitely did not deserve that. My entitled old neighbor is constantly stealing my mail and taking my packages, claiming that he's just trying to help me out anytime he sees it on my front porch, while also refusing to admit that he stole anything from me. But after finally catching him on camera in the act, after I told him to stay away from me, I finally have solid evidence proving that he's been stealing my packages, forcing me to call the police. Here's what happened. So I'm a single female living in an apartment complex, and it's just me and my dog. My neighbor across the hall is a creepy old grumpy man that I've never liked since the day he moved in. He keeps junk outside of his door, doesn't control the people that come over to his house, he throws food and trash into the common areas, and once even tried swinging at my dog with his cane. He's always made me feel extremely uncomfortable around him since day one. I have complained and complained to management, but they do nothing about him. He plays dumb when confronted and then goes back to doing whatever it was. About a year ago, he started taking my packages. I would come home to no package and have to wait for him to appear to get my stuff. Constantly, I told him to leave my packages alone, and he always says that he's just trying to help me out. Now, it's important to note that I have never had a package stolen in this building ever. I have had them delivered to the wrong address, but never stolen, and this went back and forth for a full year. He would even take them when I was home, and I literally opened my door one day to collect my package, only to then see him nearly bolting out of his apartment to get it. When he saw me, he would just say, "Oh, you're home," and then go back inside. Eventually, I had enough and I decided to buy a camera, and the camera seemed to keep him away as he doesn't like it. Last week, I was expecting a book to be delivered. The mailman drops it off, waves to the camera, and then leaves. But then this guy opens his door, he stares at my package for several minutes before trying to take it into his apartment. I then got on the intercom and I yelled at him to put my stuff down, which thankfully he decides to drop it. Well, no more than 10 minutes later, he comes back out and takes the package again. But at this point, I decided that I had definitely had enough, because that's when I decided to get off work early, come home straight away, and call the police. The officer who came out watched the video I recorded and went over to talk to my neighbor, and it was the same excuse as always, him claiming that he was just trying to be helpful. But here's the thing, I never asked him to start taking my packages. The officer then gave him a warning, saying that if he took anything else from my door, I could press charges against him and he would be arrested. Well, this guy was super pissed off. My camera also records audio, and I could hear him complaining to his niece that I didn't need to call the cops, and again that he was just looking out for me. And you know what? I would feel safer with a tiger following me in the woods than dealing with this guy as one of my neighbors. Yeah, this guy was clearly stealing your mail, and there's just no good excuse for that. Him being like, "Oh, I'm just trying to help out, I'm just trying to look out for you." It's like, no buddy, you're over here trying to steal her mail, which by the way, that's a federal crime. You can't just do that. That like seriously is so messed up. Like if you're not aware, or if you're not from the United States of America, if you steal somebody's mail and take it from them without their permission, that is a serious crime. Like that is really not okay. So I'm kind of surprised that the original poster hasn't taken this a lot further. There is literal video evidence of this guy stealing your mail all the time, as well as him literally admitting it over recording that he's doing that on purpose, that he has an agenda despite the fact that he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm just trying to help out." Like that's insane in my opinion, and there's literally no good excuse for that. Because seriously, the barrier of entry for this is so low. All he has to do is not take your packages and then bam, he's right there and it's no problem. But this guy literally is targeting you and going out of his way to take your stuff. And in my opinion, that kind of behavior absolutely should be punished. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled Karen makes my life a living nightmare after I was forced to sit in the middle seat on an airplane after being placed on standby. And I'm honestly so appalled by this lady's behavior, and I seriously cannot believe the way that she acted. Here's what happened. I'm a 23-year-old female, and I don't really know the ages of the couple in this story, but they seem to be in their late 20s or early 30s. Now, this flight was a 5-hour flight, and I always pay extra and pick my seat in advance. However, due to a medical emergency on a flight from earlier in the day, I was placed on standby because the people who got displaced from that flight were also placed on our flight since it was the next one headed to the same location. Fortunately, towards the end of boarding, my name ended up being called. I got lucky and was able to get on this flight because I think they switched to a bigger plane and didn't have to instead wait for the next flight. Now, on this new flight, my seat ended up being the middle seat in a row of 3. When I got to my row, the man and woman were chatting and sharing a snack, and it was obvious that they were together. I mentioned to the man who was in the aisle that I'm in the middle seat, and he got up to let me in. I asked them if they would prefer to sit together, and I said that I'm totally okay doing that, and that they can pick the seats. Well, the woman almost immediately reacted rudely to this. She said something like, "Well, you're not supposed to be sitting here anyways." I explained the situation, despite the fact that I'm pretty sure everyone on the plane was aware of this, as there was an announcement and some rearranging had happened. I then offered to show her my new ticket, as it did show my seat number on it. She flicked her hand at my ticket and made a disgusting sound. So I offered again. If they want to sit together, I'm more than willing to move, to which she just didn't even reply. Her partner said it's okay and seemed kinder between the two of them. So I sat down, and he just made some small talk about how the plane must be so full. Well, this woman didn't wait long and eventually interrupted us. She asked me, "Did you use one of those third-party websites to book your flight? It is so frustrating when people cheap out to inconvenience others." But I told her that I booked directly, and the only reason I got placed on standby along with many other people was due to the medical emergency that happened on another flight. I mean, none of us got to choose our seats. She then asked me if I paid for seat selection, which I told her I definitely did. And by this point, I was so done with her attitude. So I just put my headphones on and attempted to do my own thing. Well, this woman, for the remaining 4 hours, kept reaching over me and tapping her partner and trying to talk to him in a way that was super intrusive to me being stuck between them. I could tell even her partner was trying to engage less, also that she would hopefully stop, but she didn't. And the entire time, she acted like I was the problem in this scenario. Well, the unforeseen part of this aside, I think they tried to pull that tactic where they don't get to sit together on purpose, leaving the middle seat empty, hoping that no one will sit between them. But on full flights, which most flights are full nowadays, it simply doesn't work. And even so, it is definitely not the other person's fault. Wow, this entitled Karen really is the definition of stupid and entitled. If she really wanted to sit with her partner, literally all she had to do was move over. And if she didn't want to move, then easily just move the partner to the middle seat and let the original poster sit on the aisle. Then you don't have to reach over and be a nuisance and try to blame the person in the middle seat for even getting the middle seat. Like, how awfully entitled and stupid do you have to be to not only make somebody's life a living nightmare for picking the middle seat, which by the way, it's already a nightmare, but then to try and blame it on them for being cheap or somehow like working the system. Like, what in the world is wrong with this lady? This isn't your fault and you didn't ask to sit between them. And you even offered a solution where it's like, okay, you two can sit together and I'll just be over here. But this Karen's like, no, I don't even want that. She even goes as far as like slapping the ticket in your hand. Like, seriously, what a brat. If she didn't want to have some problems with you sitting there, then maybe next time choose to sit together or at least agree to switch seats from the beginning, because this attitude for 4 hours was completely unnecessary and you did not deserve that in the slightest. iPad kids literally terrify me at my restaurant that I work at, as they are quite literally some of the worst people I have to deal with on a daily basis. And I'm honestly so sick of it and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, I work as a server and it's not a high-end place, but it is decent, meaning that we don't have a lot of kids on average due to us having an incredibly limited menu and no kids menu in the first place. So when kids do come into our restaurant, the front of house dies just a little bit inside. When I tell you these kids nowadays are monsters and that these parents are delusional and that it's depressing, I honestly mean it. For example, I had a table the other day of 2 adults and 3 kids, and I've seriously never seen so much chaos take over a restaurant. iPads were being thrown around, plates being purposefully dropped on the ground, the amount of screaming and running around causing damage was just too much to handle. Not to mention, one of the other servers had had a little girl at their table that when her iPad got taken away, she started lighting the cutlery on fire from the candle on the table and decided to burn her mom with it as well. I've even had kids scream at me because our restaurant doesn't have Wi-Fi. We're talking like 9 to 13-year-olds. Like, this new generation is absolutely cooked. So without a doubt, please leave your annoying, unmannered, ignorant iPad kid at home and don't bring your untrained child into a restaurant that literally isn't McDonald's. Also, yes, when your child is screaming and running around the restaurant or so glued to their iPad screen that when you think your kid is grown up and can order themselves, but still can't form a sentence at 12 years old. And yes, the whole staff is judging you and laughing at you and making fun of you and absolutely talking garbage about you. Because trust me, some therapist in the future is going to make a lot of money off of all the damage that you're currently causing. Yeah, I completely agree with the original poster on this one. iPad kids are literally the worst, and they seriously are like a breed of their own. Now, I'm not implying that adults are not addicted to their phones and they're not on it all the time. Like, that happens all the time, and I completely think that's still a problem. But when you hand that to a child who is not fully developed and give them a device that literally is endless entertainment, all without any kind of like regulation or any kind of monitoring, like, that is literally just a recipe for disaster for everybody around you. So truly, I feel for the original poster because I feel the exact same way. And parents who do that, in my opinion, are failing their kids and they're only causing problems in the future. Am I the jerk for not giving my one sister who eloped as generous of a gift as my sister who had a traditional wedding? Because right now, my sister who eloped is very upset with me. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my parents had me when they were really young. They are still together now and had 2 more kids, my sister Katie and Jess later on. Katie and Jess are not their real names. Now, I'm about 17 years older than the both of them respectively, so because of the age gap, we didn't really grow up together, and sometimes I feel more like an uncle than an older brother to them. I've been fortunate in my career to do relatively well, and I've typically been pretty generous with them when it comes to things like birthdays, Christmases, and graduations. My sister Katie got married 2 summers ago and had your typical traditional wedding. I would guess maybe about 125 people were there, and it honestly was very nice, but definitely not cheap. I don't know how much they spent, but I know my parents and her husbands were only able to contribute for about half the cost. The rest was my sister and her husband paying for it. They were super cool and let me and my wife bring our 2 kids, even though I later found out the venue charged the same amount for kids as adults for the food and everything else. It meant a lot, and I didn't want their inclusion to be a burden, so my wife and I gifted them $500 as a wedding present to cover our plates plus a little bit extra. Now, my sister Jess has always been more low-key. When she got engaged, she told us all that she would likely elope, and nobody tried to convince her otherwise because it made sense for them. They are not flashy and have always seemed pretty frugal, and they are definitely not the type to throw a big wedding costing tens of thousands of dollars. Well, they announced a couple of weeks ago that they eloped in the mountains with just them and the necessary witness, and I was happy for them, and I didn't feel like I missed out on anything. I've been to enough weddings that I don't have any kind of fear of missing out. I'm just happy they had what they felt was right for them. Now, since they didn't have a wedding, I didn't think to get them a wedding present because, you know, they didn't have a wedding. But they did just go under contract on their first home together, so my wife and I got them a $100 gift card to Home Depot. I remember when I first bought my first home, there were a lot of home improvement stuff, and I made like 100 trips there, so I thought it would be a nice gift. Well, apparently she asked Katie what she got for their wedding, and she told them, and now she felt a certain way about our gift to them. She made a comment about feeling like their marriage wasn't respected enough because they didn't throw a big party, and then said that it felt like I was showing favoritism. So I told her that I have Katie more because she hosted my whole family, and I know how expensive that is having paid for my own wedding. Jess then just kind of rolled her eyes and walked away after that interaction, and we haven't talked about it ever since. And that was this past Sunday. Now, I thought it would be understood that the situations were just different, and it is unreasonable to expect the same generosity when you don't give any generosity, such as hosting an event or even feeding people. They didn't have a traditional wedding, and they didn't invite us to celebrate with them. So am I the jerk for not being as generous with my gift to my sister, all because they didn't have a traditional wedding? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all, and I think it's really weird that Jess is trying to compare the 2 weddings. Like, that is super inappropriate because literally she chose to get eloped, not you. Nobody else forced that upon her. She didn't want to have any kind of celebration, she didn't want anybody else there except the necessary witness, and she didn't tell anybody in advance, so like, how can anyone be expected to get anything for them? Not to mention that Katie and her husband spent all this money on this dinner and had all these things set up, including your kids, which was an extra cost. So it does kind of make sense that you would spend just a little bit more money on her and only about a fifth of that on your other sister who didn't even have a wedding. Like, I don't know, I just don't think the two situations can be compared. And for Jess to be like, wow, you gave her $500, but I only got $100. Like, that is super selfish, and in my opinion, it is incredibly inappropriate for her to compare the two of their weddings. Am I the jerk for the way I handled my father-in-law after he tried to take full control over the house that we were trying to renovate? Here's what happened. So my father-in-law is a generous man, but has what he refers to as an a-hole gene, meaning that he doesn't stop to consider what anyone else wants in many situations. Since my husband and I have been living with my husband's brother, my father-in-law decided that when the neighbor's house went on the market for a steal, he would buy us the house. After consulting with his financial planner, the decision was made to have both my father-in-law and my husband on the title and deed to the house. We would pay all taxes and utilities, and when my father-in-law passes away, my husband would inherit the house. Well, here's where it gets very messy. The house needs a lot of work. Originally, my husband and I were going to be responsible for improvements and repairs. So I started meeting with contractors and getting estimates for the work. My husband doesn't know much about home repair or renovation, and I do, as my family has renovated multiple homes. So he's been letting me handle all of the work with the contractors. But even so, my father-in-law will not speak directly to me about anything related to the house, meaning that my poor husband has to play messenger, telling me what his dad wants to do, then telling his dad that I've already got it handled and I want to do something different. The final straw came today when my husband relayed to me that his dad has said that any permanent changes to the house that cost more than $5,000 has to be approved by him. Even if we're paying for them, he wants to sign off on any and all decisions, including tile colors, light fixtures, etc. So I forwarded all my communication with the contractor that we'd chosen, but haven't signed anything with yet, and said that if he wants to make the decisions, then he can make all of the decisions. He will own the house and we will sign a rental lease when the work is done. He'll have to pass city inspections for rental units and abide by all state and local rental law. Well, now he's mad, saying that I'm ungrateful, selfish, and controlling. And at this point, I don't even want the house anymore. I'm ready to take the cat and go stay with my brother, but I don't actually want to leave my husband. I'm just sick of catering to his dad's whims. One day later, I have finally read through all of your comments, and I didn't really reply to most of them. I realize how incredibly privileged we are to be in this position, and I never had any intention of doing any work on the house without my father-in-law's approval, but we've already discussed what we're going to do, and he agreed that I should go ahead and find a contractor. But then he changed the rules. So I had dinner with my mother-in-law last night to commiserate about what a butthead he can be. And for reference, my mother-in-law definitely divorced my father-in-law. And it's then that she gave me some good advice on dealing with him. The bottom line is that we are not putting a single cent into a home unless we both have a legal stake in it. And if that can't happen, then trust me, nothing's gonna get done. So am I the jerk for the way that I handled this? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all, because it sounds like your father-in-law is super controlling. Like, this guy literally didn't buy this house for you at all. He only bought it for himself and his son. Like, literally, you are not involved in this equation at all. And that is crazy to me. Like, that really is so inappropriate. Like, this probably was just a ploy for him to control you and your husband for the rest of his life. Because sure, let's say you do fix up the house, and maybe you do move into it and have some kind of agreement. He could then overnight start making these weird rules about what you can and can't do, and try to enforce his will over you and your husband. Like, that is crazy to me, and there's really no good excuse for that. And I think there definitely needs to be a conversation with your husband for not standing up for you in the first place. Like, why was he just so willing to go along with this without being like, wait a second, why does my wife not have any cut in this? Because out of everybody, it seems like you knew exactly what you were doing. So for you to not even be considered in the title of this house, in my opinion, is incredibly insulting. Am I the jerk for asking my parents to stop telling people that I'm in the hospital, as I feel like they're violating my privacy in a way that I do not appreciate? Here's what happened. I'm a 25-year-old female and I'm currently pregnant and have been admitted to the hospital a few days ago for a suspected clot in my lung following severe chest pain, and I am still in the hospital right now. A few weeks ago, my wonderful maternal grandfather passed away from cancer, and we are obviously as a family still very upset. 2.5 years ago, I was in a car accident. I broke my back in 3 places, I broke my pelvis and 3 ribs. It was also during COVID, so I was admitted to the hospital and had loads of scans all throughout the day and night. Once they figured that I didn't need corrective surgery, they discharged me the following morning with morphine tablets and a wheelchair. I then came out of the hospital to around 100 messages from people that I barely knew wishing wishing me well. My mom and stepdad had posted pictures of my wrecked car on Facebook and told everyone they knew about the accident and the specifics about my injuries. Now, at the time, I asked them to take down the posts as I did not want people knowing all about my personal life, but they never did so. Today, my friend told me that my mom has been sending messages into group chats telling people that I am pregnant and in the hospital. My stepdad also did the same thing for his family, and I have told them that my husband and I want to share the news ourselves. I told them that I was so hurt and disappointed that they have told people and also lied to me about it. I even pointed out the lie and told them that I had again received messages from others proving that they had lied to me. My mom then sent me a voice note of her crying, saying that she was sorry and that she didn't know what she was doing, that she must be the worst mother in the world, and that she's just so upset about Papa too. It was hard to hear that she was so upset, but I just reiterated that asking for privacy was not too much to ask. My stepdad, who I have been very close to, also sent me a voice note telling me that they don't need this kind of stress and to stop being so hateful over something so trivial. He told me that I was clearly hormonal, but that he will let it slide this time because I'm pregnant. He told me that my mom has cried for over 30 minutes and it's all my fault and that it's all over nothing. Also, that they told other people because they are worried about me. He said they will never apologize as they haven't done anything wrong. He also said that I'm the daughter that he never had and that he loves me, but he is so disappointed in my behavior. And here's the original message that started this sent to my mom. I said to her, "Sorry, it's just I've had messages from people today wishing me well in the hospital, so I know you've lied about who you have told about me being here. I am just so hurt and disappointed as I would have much preferred privacy. I don't feel like sharing anymore because I don't know who you're both sharing it with, and it has actually made me being in the hospital much more stressful. Now, I might be the jerk because we are all grieving and emotions are running high, but I also don't feel like they told other people in a malicious way, but instead just did it in a thoughtless way. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do?" I don't think you're the jerk at all for drawing boundaries out, especially with the way your stepdad was acting. Is he really trying to be like, "Oh, you're just hormonal right now because you're pregnant, but that's okay, I'll let it slide this time"? Like seriously, what kind of passive-aggressive sexist comment is that? What a coward to say something like that when you're literally in the hospital. Oh, he's gonna let it slide? What would he do if he didn't let it slide? Like, what a ridiculous thing to say to somebody who is literally currently in the hospital. And in my opinion, I'm right there with the original poster. I wouldn't want my personal information out there, especially if I wasn't the one to first tell people about it. Like, I think what you're asking is completely reasonable in my opinion, and for your mom and stepdad to disrespect you in this way, in my opinion, is very toxic and incredibly thoughtless. An entitled Karen goes into a fit of rage after I hang up on her for being aggressive and toxic towards me over the phone. But as a result, this entitled Karen came to my store directly so that she could confront me and try to get me fired. And I've honestly never met anybody more insane in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so I used to work in the cosmetics department for a very popular brand. We were always busy and some days were non-stop. So this particular day was during the holidays, and I remember being behind the register with a crazy long line, along with other clients waiting to be helped, as well as other appointments waiting to arrive. This entitled Karen calls on the phone and is asking about a product from a different counter. Well, I tell her that I don't work for that brand, but I can transfer her over. She then goes, "No, I don't want to be transferred. You can walk over there yourself and tell me if they have this product." I then tell her that every department is separate and that the person there will assist her with this. She just completely disregards everything I said and repeats that I need to personally go over there and check myself. I also tell her that it's completely slammed at my counter and I couldn't even leave if I wanted to because I have clients waiting in front of me. I'm still at this point being patient and professional, even though this Karen was really pushing it. She then starts getting stern, like she's talking to a child or her own personal employee, and tells me something along the lines of, "I am telling you right now to go over there yourself and tell me what it is because that's what good customer service is." Well, at this point, I'm getting really pissed off because in the time I've wasted talking to her, she could have been transferred and already knew if they had what she wanted. And also, she's definitely not going to talk down to me as if I'm beneath her. It's clear she wanted to be demanding and unreasonable, and when I see that's the intention, I'm not going to play their power games. I tell her, "Okay, ma'am, I'm transferring you now." She then starts demanding to know my name, but I tell her I'm not going to give it to her. So I transfer her, I hang up the phone, and I try to assist as many clients at the same time as I can, because there are even more people waiting now. About 20 minutes later, I'm behind the register with a never-ending line of people, and right then and there, I see this one annoyed-looking lady who resembles the leprechaun from those horror movies, comes stalking over to my department, and I can definitely tell that she's looking for trouble. Don't ask me how I knew, but I had a gut feeling it was the entitled Karen from the phone earlier, and boy was I definitely right. She eventually comes up to the counter, but not to where she is with the people waiting for help. She comes to the side of the counter like you would if you wanted to ask a quick question. I kid you not, she turns her head to listen to each of the workers behind the counter as we are speaking to customers, just so she can figure out who it was that she spoke to on the phone by our voices. And at this point, I knew for a fact it was her, and I was in disbelief and honestly amused that this lady, who was too important to wait for a call to be transferred to the correct department, somehow had enough time to physically come to the counter to confront me. I'm watching her from the corner of my eye, but I don't acknowledge her. By now, my coworkers have noticed this woman and her weird behavior, and I tell them that I'm pretty sure it's the crazy Karen who called earlier. Now, at this point, Leprechaun Lady isn't saying anything, just eyeballing us and leaning in to hear us talk. Eventually, she points to me and goes, "It was you." But I look at her with such disinterest and I just say, "Excuse me?" She then says that I'm the one who wouldn't help her on the phone earlier, and she wants my name, the number to corporate, and to speak to a manager. Mind you, we are still slammed with customers, and everyone is looking at her making a scene. Well, I just kept my cool because that was making her even more angry that I was being so nonchalant. So I tell her now that she's here, she can go check the counter herself for her product. I also let her know that I'm still not giving her my name because her behavior makes me feel incredibly uncomfortable, and that if she doesn't get away from me, I'm calling security. And by now, she has pretty much everyone in the vicinity looking at her crazy, and I guess she decided not to push her luck because she finally left in a huff. This Karen clearly had too much time on her hands and wanted to use it to go cause problems, and I can only imagine the issues that she causes everywhere else that she goes. Wow, you either have to be like super bored or incredibly petty to show up to a store after talking to someone like that on the phone. Like seriously, if she had just been transferred, she could have figured this out right away. But instead she's like, "No, I want you to do it. You need to be my personal slave right away." Like that is so crazy to me, and I will never understand that. It's also incredibly creepy that she was trying to listen to everybody talk just to figure out who it was that hung up on her. Like seriously, this is that important to this lady. She had to go out of her way to figure out who it was just to try and like teach him a lesson. Like, what are you doing with your life? Seriously, that is so insane to me. So good for the original poster for not giving out their name or even giving this lady the time of day, because people like this truly are obnoxious to deal with, and I love the fact that this Karen got shut down almost immediately. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for telling my mom that she isn't invited to my brother's wedding, all because she was extremely rude to his fiance? Because right now she is in complete denial, and at this point I don't know if I made a mistake or not, and I really now don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my brother, who we will call Connor, and his fiance, who we will call Christine, are getting married in early 2025. They got engaged a few months ago and have recently sent out wedding invitations, and my mom is upset because she wasn't invited. For some background info, we met Christine after she and Connor had been dating for about 8 months, and that was a few years ago. Basically, my mom just didn't like her. After we met her, she'd constantly complain and criticize Christine, and this would range from her looks all the way to her job. And for reference, Christine is a waitress, and my mom would say stuff like, "Oh, she just isn't good enough for my son." And honestly, I don't get any of it. Christine and I are friends. She is such a sweet person who wouldn't hurt a fly. Whenever Christine and Connor came over for dinner or an event, she wouldn't say anything to Christine, but she tried to get Connor to always spend time with her instead of Christine. She always tried to one-up Christine as well. If she called Connor and he mentioned that Christine made dinner, her dinner was suddenly just always better. If Christine had a gift for Connor, my mother always tried to say how her gift was better than hers. Thankfully, my brother is not stupid and realized all of this. And to avoid starting family drama, he didn't condemn her loudly in front of everybody, but would always defend Christine if he heard her talking any kind of garbage. He made it very clear that if she kept talking badly about Christine all the time, he would go extremely low contact. And that made her stop for a while, but since they announced their engagement, she is back to it again. Maybe she forgot, I don't really know. But I do think it's because Connor is her son, and I know that some mothers can be very clingy with their sons. I have a boyfriend, and I've never heard her say a bad word about him. So I do really think it's because Connor is her son and I am her daughter. I was at my mom's house yesterday, and my mom complained that she wasn't invited. She said Christine was stealing Connor away from her. So I told her that Connor getting married didn't necessarily mean Christine Christine was stealing him. Then I asked her what exactly she didn't like about Christine, but it all really led back to the same thing. She would say that she's stealing her son away from her. I told her that while she can't control how she feels, she can control her actions, and that talking about Christine like that was the reason that she wasn't invited. I tried to say it gently, but she did not take it well at all. She tried to make excuses and say that it was fine, and that it's just her venting to her family and friends, and that I was being inconsiderate of her feelings. Now, I know how she feels about it, but I think those feelings aren't really an excuse for talking garbage behind someone's back like that, not to mention going out of your way to make it clear that you dislike them. And I know I'm not the only person in the family who would argue with me. I ended up telling Connor about it, and he said I was right, and that she needed a reality check, but it's all been weighing on my mind. I just can't stop thinking about it. So am I the jerk for telling the truth to my mom? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk, because I think you gave her the nice version of how this really was gonna go down, and I think the fact that she just doesn't understand what she did wrong, in my opinion, is a massive red flag. Like, it really seems like she's in complete denial, and she cannot accept the fact that yes, she definitely is the problem. I mean, just look at the way she's treating Christine. She's literally acting like, oh yeah, you're not good enough for my son. That is such a toxic way of acting, not to mention the fact that the mom's like, oh, you're stealing my son away from me. That is such a weird thing to say because you are not married to your son. Your son is getting married to Christine. Like, that is such a strange thing to insinuate. And if she was doing this right, it wouldn't be like, oh yeah, you're stealing him away from me. But instead, you should be saying, oh, I'm so happy for you. You found someone that you actually care about and you can now move forward with your life. Like, does the mom in this story really want her son to stay single forever? Like, that just doesn't make any sense, and honestly, it kind of gives good reason as to why she wasn't invited to the wedding in the first place. So no, I don't think you're the jerk for dropping this news, because I'm sure that Connor or Christine would have said it a lot harsher. And I think if anything, she got the nice version instead of getting scolded and humiliated. An entitled Karen tries to sneak her friend into the gym that I work at, all without showing any kind of proper membership. Here's what happened. So this happened this morning when I picked up a shift at another location at the gym that I work at. Keep in mind, this is the first time I worked at this location, and I did just start with the company 3 weeks ago. I opened the gym at 5 o'clock in the morning, and at around 7 o'clock in the morning, this man and woman came in to work out, and this woman, let's call her Jackie, that's not her real name, scanned her QR code, but her friend did not. We offer buddy passes at a cost, and my screen told me that she did not have any buddy passes, and I did not see her friend scan a QR code. I had asked Jackie if her friend was a member and had a QR code, and she has said that it's okay because he's my buddy, but unfortunately, I sadly had to inform her that she didn't have any buddy passes, and I asked her friend if he ever had our guest pass, which was a one-time free thing for locals. Well, he said that he did before, so that automatically disqualified him for a free guest pass. I bring up that the buddy passes are $20, and she can bring in one person every time that she comes in, and so I ask if she wants to do that, but she just declines the offer. I informed Jackie that since she doesn't have any buddy passes on her account, and because her friend in the past has already used a free guest pass, and that she doesn't want to buy a buddy pass, then unfortunately I would have to refuse his entry. Now, I'm the type of person that has a hard time with confrontation, and I'm a very anxious person, but I am working on my confidence with confrontation and potential issues that may arise. She said that he is always allowed in and that everybody just lets him by. I then try to think on my toes to come up with a resolution, and I tell her to hold on and let me speak to someone whom at the time I thought he was in my position but one step above the ladder, but later found out that I was wrong. So I asked him if people let him in all the time, and he just said it's not his jurisdiction and that we do offer 3-day guest pass for about $25. And I thought to myself, oh, I forgot about that. I replied by saying, okay, I'll go ahead and offer it to her then. I went ahead and I offered it to her, and she said that her friend won't be over here much longer, which implies that he was from out of state. She decided to be a jerk and say, oh, you must be new here. And I was flabbergasted that she even decided to make that comment. I did tell her, yes, I was new here and it was my 3rd week, but at the same time, unfortunately, since you don't have a buddy and he doesn't want to pay for a guest pass, unfortunately, he is not able to work out today. And I then apologized for the inconvenience. She was going to say more, but her friend stopped her and said that it's okay and that he can go for a walk and that he'll be back later when she's done. And thankfully, right then and there, the whole debacle ended. And I will say, at the end of the day, I thankfully missed her exit out of the gym. I then asked the manager at that location when he showed up at about 9 o'clock, and he didn't even know who Jackie was off the bat. He then said that sometimes people will just sneak people in when others are busy or not looking at the members checking in. But I seriously need to know, am I in the wrong or am I the jerk for not letting this lady bring her friend into the gym? Because right now, I'm really not sure if this was the right move to make. No, you're definitely not the jerk here. Jackie knew exactly what she was doing, and she just didn't want to pay the $20 for her friend to work out, because that's all that was happening here, all because Jackie was being incredibly cheap. Am I the jerk for not paying for a painting that I asked my friend to do after waiting not only 6 years for her to do it, but also with her demanding that I pay way more than I ever agreed to? Because right now I am very frustrated, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my friend, who we will call Jordan, is a wonderful artist. I love her work, so I told her that if she ever considered doing commission pieces, I wanted to be her first customer. She said okay, and I sent her a picture of my dad, who passed away, as a reference. And I wanted to give this painting to my mom as a gift. Now, this was back in early 2018. Jordan said that she would start on it when she could, but that she was busy. And I really just thought that she did not want to do any commission work yet, so I just kind of left it at that. Well, a few weeks ago, after our conversation, Jordan posted on social media that she was open to do commission pieces, and posted about how she would charge for those pieces. I messaged her again, and she said that she got my order and was starting the piece for me. Now, per her post, I assumed the piece would be around $200. She also said that she was charging her clients around that much, so I should expect to pay about the same. And she said that she didn't want me to pay until after she was done, so I didn't. Now, fast forward, and for the last 6 years, she would post the other commission pieces that she had done. When I asked about mine, she would say that she's working on it, but that she hasn't had the time to finish it up. And she often lost her job and was looking for a new place to stay, among other things. I understood that times could be hard, so I just waited. The reason I didn't just stop asking her was because sometimes she would send me Snapchats that showed sneak peeks of the painting, so I knew she was working on it little by little. Well, flash forward to last weekend, and she finally gave it to me. It is a beautiful painting of my dad, and I cried looking at it. But then she dropped the news on me that it was going to be $700, and I was not prepared to pay that much. I told her that when she started doing commissions, she was charging her clients about $200 to $300, but she responded by saying that she realized that her work was worth more, and also the cost of supplies had gone up since then, plus the amount of time spent working on it. I thought it was unfair to charge me so much, given that I had waited years for this painting. Also, within the last 6 years, I had gotten married, I had bought a house, and I now have 2 children of my own. I don't just have $700 to spare on this painting. She told me that it isn't her fault that I can't afford it, and refused to give it to me until I could pay her. So I told her to just keep it, since I didn't have the money for it in the first place. Well, she called me a jerk for wasting her time on this and then left. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you are not the jerk. The fact that you waited 6 years for this painting and then she tries to hike up the price is absolutely insane to me. There's no good excuse for that. If she had time to do commission pieces for other people, especially in 6 years' time, then she absolutely had time to do your piece that you asked for, but instead just chose not to. Here she is posting all these pictures on social media of all the stuff she's doing, and yet in 6 years she can't even not only get your painting done, but also tell you the accurate price of what to expect. Being told that it's going to be $200 6 years ago, and then being oh psych, I raised it by $500. That would really piss me off, especially if it was something that was very sentimental and it was something that I was waiting on. This is a picture of your dad that you really wanted. You've been waiting for this since 2018. So for her to turn around and be I'm sorry, but it's going to be $700. I know my worth now, so you're just going to have to pay up. But at that point, it's no, you don't know your worth. You completely took advantage of me. She really did take advantage of your friendship and literally tried to raise the price at the last second, all without informing you first. Seriously, if she was going to raise her price, she should have told you well in advance so that you could have the money ready instead of dropping it on you at the last second. Because that, in my opinion, is completely unprofessional, as well as an incredibly disgusting thing to do. My mom is constantly manipulating my life and constantly making me second guess every move I make. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 28-year-old male and I'm a cardiologist in training, pursuing a PhD, managing various international projects, plus having another part-time job at an outpatient's clinic. I have been living alone for 3 years, and I always had a good relationship with my mother, and I thought it was better than most of my peers. I've always had the feeling that she wasn't satisfied with how I did certain things, but I never explored it more deeply. But everything changed about a year ago when I introduced them to my new girlfriend. Honestly, I thought that they would be thrilled with her. She's well-mannered, college-educated, and very intelligent. I never realized that her tattoos would be such a problem. On the day of the introduction, my mother called me, and the next day she even came to my house in person as soon as possible. I had to listen to how much I had hurt her, that I was a bad son, son and that I had disappointed her. She managed in less than 2 hours to analyze my girlfriend and concluded that she was a bad person who liked to harm herself and was mentally disturbed. And this is all because she had tattoos. She then gave me an ultimatum. I had to choose either her or my girlfriend. She then told the whole family, so I also received similar phone calls from my grandparents. After numerous emotional meetings and text messages, she took back the ultimatum as if it never happened. In her eyes, I've made a compromise. I shouldn't mention my girlfriend. I should act as if she doesn't exist and continue visiting them happily as before. Now, of course, it didn't work. I didn't like visiting them. It was always emotionally draining. Every time I mentioned her first name, we would argue. When she saw the location at the place where my girlfriend works, I received blackmailing text messages. When I posted a video with her on social media, my mom had to unfollow me. I tried to limit frequency of visits with my parents, but every time I don't come, I get a message about how cold I am and that I don't make my parents happy. And going low contact doesn't help either, because she always found a way to contact me somehow. Now, of course, I always defended my girlfriend in front of them, and when they made inappropriate comments, I ended the conversation and I would just leave. She doesn't know about many of these things, and she doesn't deserve to suffer unnecessarily. It's unfair for her to be insulted by people who don't even really know her, especially when she doesn't deserve it. None of my mother's predictions about her ever came true, by the way. I've tried to find compromise and gradually get my parents to at least have a certain level of acceptance. However, I'm just completely exhausted by this, and I see no way out. I'm tired of hearing how I failed as a person, how they sacrificed their whole lives for me, and that I'm just ungrateful, that I don't care about them, and that my girlfriend is more important to me than they are, and that I'm just selfish for not caring about my parents' happiness. No argument seems to work. It's as if my feelings just don't matter. Everything that I bring up from the past is misunderstood or supposedly happened differently than what I remember. They say the whole situation is my fault because I know my mom didn't like tattoos, but I've long realized that this isn't really about my girlfriend, but honestly, it's about me. My parents don't understand that I wasn't choosing between them and my girlfriend, but that I choose myself and the ability to make my own decisions. However, they still feel that if I broke up with her, everything would be perfect again, and we would all just get along, but I really don't feel that way. I feel like they've completely humiliated me and that they are not good people. I've even started to doubt myself. I've even tried many times to view the situation from my parents' perspective, wondering if perhaps I made a mistake and caused the entire situation myself. Objectively, I know that I've already achieved more than what my parents did in their entire lives in terms of work, and I have a perfect relationship with my girlfriend. I don't even think I'm morally at rock bottom. I've acted correctly towards my girlfriend as she is the most important person in my life. I believe there are many things my parents could be proud of. Despite all of this though, I still feel trapped. Just the thought of living in the same city as her evokes this sense of lack of freedom in me. I still feel something like a mother's gaze or a sense of her constant scrutiny. I'm honestly trying to find hope for improvement. I know exactly what I need to do, and I'm looking for the inner strength to do it. I want to go to therapy and cut all ties with them. However, I find this extremely difficult due to the past. My father is a former alcoholic, and I was my mother's support during these tough times. I also feel sorry to lose contact with the rest of the family, especially my sister, but also my father. They don't share my mother's views, but they don't openly oppose her for the sake of household peace. It's challenging also because just over a year ago, everything seemed to be fine, but now I feel completely lost and I really don't know what to do. Yeah, I think everything you're talking about is so true, especially with you saying that you know what you need to do. Like, just from the outside looking in, your mom sounds incredibly obnoxious, and it sounds like she never wants to let you go from her life. And that is obnoxious and so uncalled for. So truly, I hope this all works out for you, because the way your mom is acting is super inappropriate. An entitled Karen breaks into my house, demanding that she use my bathroom as she was having an emergency. But despite the fact that I told her repeatedly that she needs to leave my property, she refused to go, forcing me to call the cops. Here's what happened. This story also came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Okay, to kind of set the scene, it was a lazy Saturday afternoon, and I was at home enjoying some peace and quiet. I live in a suburban neighborhood where most people keep to themselves. My house is on a corner, so I get a lot of foot traffic passing by, especially on weekends. At around 2:00 p.m., I heard someone frantically knocking on my door. I wasn't expecting anybody, so I just ignored it at first, thinking that maybe it was some kind of solicitor or something like that. But the knocking turned into pounding, and then I heard someone yelling, "Hello, is anyone home? It's an emergency." So I got up to see what was going on, and I opened the door to find a woman maybe in her 40s looking desperate. it. She immediately blurted out, "I need to use your bathroom. It's an emergency." When she said this, I was taken aback. I didn't recognize her, and she wasn't giving off the best vibes. She had this intense, pushy energy that honestly made me very uncomfortable. I told her I was sorry, but I didn't feel comfortable letting a stranger into my home. She then started getting very angry, saying things like, "What kind of person won't help somebody in need? I'll be quick, I promise." But I stood my ground, and I told her that there was a gas station just down the street that she could use. But before I could react, she pushed past me and ran into my house, heading straight for the bathroom. And I was completely in shock. So I followed her, telling her to get out, but she just slammed the bathroom door shut right in my face. And right then and there, I didn't know what to do. I felt violated in my own home. So I grabbed my phone and I called the police. I stood outside the bathroom door, telling her that I had just called the cops and that she needed to leave immediately. But she yelled back that I was being ridiculous and that she would be out in just a minute. Well, the police arrived quickly, and when they did, she finally came out of the bathroom acting all indignant. She tried to argue with the officers, saying that I was overreacting and that she just needed to use the bathroom. But the cops thankfully were not having it. They escorted her out of the house and gave her a stern warning, but they didn't arrest her. But now I'm left wondering if I did the right thing. Some of my friends think that I overreacted by calling the cops, saying that I could have just waited it out and let her leave. But others think I'm completely justified considering that she broke into my house. So am I the jerk for calling the cops on this lady? What should I do? Wow, this is crazy that anybody in your life would be like, "Wow, you overreacted. You should have just waited for this lady to get out of your bathroom." It's like, no, that's not how this is gonna work at all. For starters, she literally broke into your house and was like, "Out of my way, I need to poop," or whatever she was gonna do. Like, that in and of itself is already jarring. Like, I can't imagine someone coming up to my house and suddenly saying, "Oh, it's an emergency, you need to let me in right now." Like, that would make me immediately suspicious. I would not think they have good intentions in the slightest, and I would assume, oh yeah, they're definitely gonna rob me or something like that. But more importantly, just look at the way she acted. This lady broke into your house. She literally pushed her way past you to go to the bathroom. And it doesn't matter if it was an emergency or not. That doesn't give somebody a license to break into your house and do whatever they want. So no, of course you're not the jerk here, and of course you didn't do anything wrong, because this lady could have been insane. And I really think that calling the cops was the only option in this scenario. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My boyfriend's crazy mom is always blowing up my phone at 2 in the morning, trying to get me to wake up my boyfriend as he tends to sleep in for his family business. And after dealing with this, as well as her controlling attitude all the time, I'm seriously at my wit's end and I now don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of context, I'm a 28-year-old female and my boyfriend is 25. Overall, our relationship is practically perfect, and I actually have zero complaints about him at all. But when it comes to his mom, she is absolutely crazy. For starters, he owns and operates a family business with his dad, and when he oversleeps his alarm, which is almost every single day, his mom blows up my phone to try and get me to wake him up, I guess. Now, for further context, my boyfriend is Mexican and I'm white. When we first got together, he jokingly warned me about how Mexican moms are super clingy with their sons, but I wasn't concerned as I felt like I'm a great partner and super likable. His dad speaks basically zero English and his mom speaks very basic English. Like I mentioned, he and his dad own and operate a family business where their shifts start anywhere from 1 o'clock in the morning all the way till 4 o'clock in the morning. After my boyfriend gets off his 12-hour shift, he also usually repairs the equipment with his dad a few times a week. This saves them a lot of money on mechanics work, but it is extremely draining, and they're literally working a 12 to 18-hour shift 6 times a week, sometimes working on Sunday too. And this work will sometimes last until super late in the night, even 11 o'clock p.m., and then they have to start working again at like 2 in the morning. So needless to say, they do an insane amount of work. When we first dated, we lived an hour away, but would hang out multiple times a week after we both got out of work. I would always tell him to feel free to cut off our hangouts whenever he needed to. That way, he could get some adequate sleep for work. But during our hangouts, his mom would blow up his phone, just calling over and over again, until he would finally just answer and say that he's coming home soon and not to worry. I met his parents about a month into the relationship. We went to eat and it was decent, but neither of the parents really talked to me throughout the whole dinner or even asked me any questions. I tried to ask the mom a few questions and we had no problem communicating, but she was pretty short. I also bought her a bouquet of flowers I made, as first impressions are everything. At the end of the dinner, she commented how he always comes home so late now. I just laughed and said I always tell him to go go home, but he doesn't. And then I said, please let me know if you ever want his number, if you ever don't know where he is. Now she just laughed but did not take my number. I hung out with the family for the last New Year's, and it was alright, but a boisterous family friend made a comment about my man's mom when they were taking family pictures, and they said to me, see, she's gotta get family pictures without you. Didn't you know she's super jealous? Now the family didn't notice as they were just taking pictures, but I just kinda laughed it off. If it matters, they did include me in one picture. So it was a weird comment, but honestly, I didn't think much of it. We moved in February of 2024, which was a small 20 minutes away from his parents' house and the business location. He said his mom tried to discourage it, and I know it was pretty fast, so I kind of understood. But as it got closer, she would be crying and begging him not to go, and even offered to pay the deposit he would lose if he backed out, but he decided to stick with it. As soon as we moved in, I discovered his problem waking up on time for work, and I'm guessing his mom would be the one to force him to wake up for work when he was living at home. He falls asleep almost immediately whenever he is idle for too long. He will sleep for long periods of time when out of work, and will sleep through his alarm for almost 2 hours straight every single day. In my opinion, the poor guy is chronically fatigued. He literally works nearly every day a week at 12 to 18 hours a day. He is absolutely exhausted. Also, if he starts late, sometimes there might not be time to finish all the loads he hopes, but other times the demand is slow enough that whether he starts at 2 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock in the morning, he is still finishing all possible loads. So it mostly affects what time work is done and what time he can start working on the equipment with his dad. I do try and wake him up a little because the alarms are annoying, but I also let him sleep because I feel bad for how tired he is, and also because it's not safe to be driving extremely sleep deprived. Now back to his mom. I always felt like she never really liked me. The handful of times that we hung out, which was always just going out to eat, it just feels extremely awkward for me, and the family just speaks Spanish the entire time, and I'm mostly just sitting there the entire meal, either on my phone or sometimes talking to my boyfriend when he talks to me. I always had a problem with the extreme lack of conversation between me and the mom because I always thought it was weird to invite me to a meal and just exclude me the whole time. In June, we went to dinner again, and I thought his mom was finally warming up to me. She was asking me questions, talking to me about what her youngest son was up to in school, and I honestly felt really good. At the end of the meal, she asked for my number, so I really thought we were warming up to each other. Well, 2 weeks later, she started calling me at 3 in the morning when he oversleeps. I personally have my phone on silent, so I never answer or respond the next day as I don't see a reason to. On the 4th of July, I went to a small barbecue with my boyfriend's family and his family friends. And trust me, this went so bad. As soon as I got there, the host's older mother was asking my man how it is living with me, as well as asking what I cook for lunch, but all of this was in Spanish. And I just know they're talking about me because she keeps gesturing to me and you can just honestly tell. They then ask in English, what kind of things do you make for him? Now, I'm an incredible cook, so I pulled out an album I had ready of gorgeous, colorful plates. And right when I do that, they start speaking Spanish again. And then in English, they start laughing. They say to me, you need to start making lunches for his dad too. And I thought it was dumb, but I just laughed it off. Apart from those 2 sentences, almost nobody says anything to me. At this point, this lady and my boyfriend's mom keep asking him things, talking amongst themselves and laughing a lot, and I'm just on my phone the entire time. I texted my boyfriend that I know they're talking crap about me, and he says they're not talking crap, it's just the way they banter in his culture. Unfortunately, I cry super easily. I felt very uncomfortable sitting there, not knowing what anyone else was saying, and even though I tried not to, my eyes welled up and I just had to get up and go to the bathroom. The wife half of the hosting party comes to comfort me and says she confirmed that nobody is saying bad things, but said that to be honest sometimes, she sees my boyfriend's mom giving me looks. We have a good talk about how it's hard to win over crazy moms, and I then went back to the barbecue. When I get back from the bathroom, the mom is sitting with my boyfriend, and my boyfriend says to me, my mom wants to try your cheesecake, let's get some, shall we? Which was really weird, because why wouldn't the mom just tell me to get the cheesecakes? Also, then eventually everybody tried them, and I got a lot of compliments on them, but my boyfriend's mom just sat there still not talking to me. When we left, we did say the host's mother was basically asking if I can't cook since I'm white, and if I only make frozen food. My issue is that these people make absolutely zero effort to get to know me, to make me feel genuinely included and welcome. The speaking Spanish part only bugs me when I feel like they're cracking jokes, where I just can't even defend myself, or even know if that's what's being said in the first place. I left the 4th of July feeling super upset, and basically said I never really want to hang out with his family ever again. He says the way that they are is just their culture, but I tell him that I'm sorry, but I'm just used to people of all cultures treating me with basic decency and some kind of effort in the very least in getting to know me just a little bit. Overall, he said that's fine, and that what matters in the end is me feeling comfortable because I'm his partner that he wants to marry and that I come first, which satisfies my uneasiness about his controlling mother. Ever since then, I have not seen them, but his mom has been calling me so much when he oversleeps. Like, we're talking 8 times in an hour. I have her on her very own special mode of do not disturb so that I don't get disturbed by her phone calls, but I'm getting irritated with her feeling entitled to call me at these insane hours. Should I tell my boyfriend to tell his mom to stop calling me for work-related issues? Should I text her myself? I mean, should I just let her keep calling? What should I do? Okay, I can completely understand where you're coming from, where you're like, okay, his mom is kind of crazy and a little bit controlling. But also, what is the boyfriend doing to try and fix this situation? Like, seriously, this is a grown man. This guy's 25 years old. He absolutely should be able to wake up on time for work. Why are you being saddled with that responsibility? Like, that really is annoying. It's like, come on, you can't have your mom wake you up all the time, can you? Because the original poster should not be taking that place. So to that end, I can kind of understand why the mom is calling you, because maybe she thinks that you can help him get up on time. But in my opinion, this problem begins and ends with your boyfriend. He needs to not only talk to his mom about stepping off and stepping back, but also figure out his sleep schedule and his work-life balance. Like, this all seems incredibly unfair to you specifically across the board. And I know if I was in your shoes, I would be very unhappy with the way I'm being treated. Am I the jerk for kicking my sister out of my wedding after she refused to follow the color scheme? Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm a 25-year-old female, and when I was 9 years old, my parents adopted my sister, who we will call Jen, who was 7 years old at the time. Jen was thin and fearful due to being neglected, and we did everything we could to make her feel loved. We bought her lots of toys, and basically everything Jen wanted, she got. When my parents asked me to move to the smaller bedroom so that Jen could have her own room, I was happy to do it. When they asked if I would let Jen pick the decorations and cake for my upcoming birthday, I agreed as well. I was so happy to have a sister, and I understood why my parents gave her special treatment. Only the treatment didn't stop. For years, every trip we went on, we had to do what Jen wanted to do. We had to eat exactly where she wanted, and she got to plan all of my birthday parties. If she didn't get what she wanted, she threw a tantrum. I still felt loved and cared for by my parents. I mean, they drove me to practices, bought me things, cooked meals for me, spent genuine family quality time, and gave me advice. But I always seemed second to Jen. As I got older, I did anything I could to leave the house. I got my first job when I was 12 years old, and I even vacationed with my friends instead of family. I played 3 different sports, and I did band. And I took my driver's test the day I turned 16, and I bought a car right after that. And I even went to college on the other side of the country. Now that I make good money, I do things that I missed as a child. I take fancy vacations and throw elaborate parties as I please. And my wedding was no exception. My fiance and I wanted everything to be perfect. And with that, we thought it would be fun to have a color scheme. My favorite color is yellow, and his is blue. So my guests would wear yellow, and his would wear blue, with any mutual friends wearing green. I picked out a dress with green embroidered details, and he picked a boutonniere with green flowers. When Jen found out about this, she was mad. And I didn't actually know this, but she hates the color yellow as it supposedly washes her out. She told me under no circumstances would she ever wear yellow. Now, when she said this, I just shrugged, and I said to her, okay, that's fine, but I would kick you out if you did not wear yellow. And after I said that, there was no further discussion. But fast forward to my wedding day, and Jen came in a purple dress. And right then and there, I told her to leave immediately. The color scheme was perfect, and she literally ruined it. Now, when I said this, Jen refused to leave. That is, until I threatened to call security. The rest of the wedding went smoothly, but afterwards, my parents were furious with me for kicking Jen out. I told them that I warned her she would be kicked out if she didn't follow the color scheme, but they said they all thought it was a joke. They said it was cruel of me to kick my sister out over something so trivial, but I told them that this was my wedding that I threw without their support, so I can kick whoever I want out. My fiance came rushing up to defend me, and even told my parents that they should be ashamed of how they treated me. But over the past few days, a lot of people I've talked to, namely my grandparents, aunts, uncles, friends, have all had mixed opinions. Some say that they would not have even invited Jen if they were me, while others are saying that I should have just let it slide. So honestly, am I the jerk for kicking Jen out of my wedding? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all, because I think Jen was trying to be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get exactly what I want today. Like seriously, if there's some kind of like dress code or color code at a wedding, the very least you could do is follow it. And it's not like Jen didn't know about the color scheme or any of that other garbage. She knew exactly what she was doing going to that wedding. She showed up in a purple dress because she wanted to stand out and literally take away from what you were trying to do. And that, in my opinion, is completely unacceptable. So no, you're definitely not the jerk, and I know if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. Am I the jerk for calling out my husband and his parents after they tried to embarrass my stepdaughter in front of her friends? Here's what happened. So my husband's parents stayed with us for a few days, and the other night, we had an issue that resulted in my stepdaughter being angry, me being angry, as well as my husband and them getting angry. I met my stepdaughter when she was 6 years old, and I started dating my husband when she was 5, with us getting married when she was 8. Now, I'll admit, when we first met, knowing that her mom had passed away, I thought I would be filling in as a mom-like or at least a second mom type of figure. In my heart, I wanted to be her mom, and for her to be my daughter, but it was clear before we got married that it wouldn't happen. She was actually very resistant to being around me. I told my husband that we needed therapy together before we got married because she had to be okay with things and we needed to figure out what our family dynamic would look like. I won't bore you with the unnecessary details, but she didn't want me to replace her mom. She was already very insecure about me being around because her parents hadn't been together when her mom passed away, which to her meant that she was alone loving her mom. But she knew what we wanted, for her to love me and see me as another mom. But it scared her and it made her sad. It made her tummy hurt, to quote my stepdaughter. But through therapy, we figured out what the relationship would look like. My husband would be the parent and I would be an adult in the home and be a safe person for my stepdaughter. My husband would keep the one-on-one time with my stepdaughter, and we would spend some time together naturally over time and in the way that worked best without forcing it. My stepdaughter would call me by my first name and I'd call her my stepdaughter and not my daughter. And eventually we worked it all out, and we have been good with all of that. She and I have a good relationship, and she's a sweet big sister to her half-siblings. It's all very normal. Then a few days ago, my stepdaughter had brought friends into the house rather quickly, and these were some new friends. She introduced all of us, including me, by my name, but my mother-in-law told her that she could say more than my name. Well, she told them that I was her stepmother technically, but more of a friend. Then my husband and his parents interrupted and said that she should be more generous than that, and that I'm the only real mother she's ever had in her life. And they started to say how grateful she should be to have someone like me as a mother. Well, when she started crying, I told them to stop. I said that my name had been fine. They should stop pushing and trying to humiliate her. My stepdaughter told my husband that she always knew he thought her mom was worthless, but she doesn't. I told her to go get ready and have fun, and I gave her some extra cash. And then an argument broke out between me and my husband and the in-laws. They felt I should appreciate the gesture of defending me, but I told them it wasn't defending me. It was done to humiliate her enough into introducing me how they wanted. My husband regretted his action afterwards, and I told him he'll have to do a lot to make up for it. His parents, however, feel I was cruelly unfair to them, and I should not have snapped at them like I did. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Okay, your husband and the in-laws are completely out of their mind. Why on earth would they ever be like, wow, you should be more grateful to your stepmom. She's the only real mother you've ever had in your life. Like, what in the world is going on right now? That is so rude. You don't say that to a child. Literally, a child who lost their mother. For literally anybody to make that kind of statement and then try to fall back and be like, wow, you were really cruel towards us. That is not only incredibly delusional, but that would be like the only time I ever deal with that, because there's no way anybody's gonna treat this kid in that manner. Like, you guys came to a consensus. You basically figured out what works for all of you, and everything was normal. Like, things really were working out. So for them to step in and be like, no, you have to do it this way. You need to be more grateful. Like, that is crazy to me, and I can never understand that kind of rationale. So no, you're not the jerk, and in my opinion, your husband and the in-laws absolutely need to apologize to her. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Jerk, make sure to subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.